Hey guys, welcome to Fanfic Fanatics. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if badass Deku fell in love with Melissa? Part 3, Final. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is Hero of Courage, Fulcrum by TheHinokami. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. Third POV. Soon after All Might arrived, the ambulances for Native and Iida arrived. All Might asked what happened and Izuku started to explain the situation to All Might, who luckily didn't have to run and hide due to the time limit since he saved it all day and only used an hour to sew for all the fighting and moving around. All Might was not happy at all on what he heard on what Iida did. Soon they both headed towards the hospital after talking a bit more. Izuku was informed by one of the officers that the chief of police for Hosu was going to be waiting for Izuku at the hospital to get a statement of the entire event in regards to Stain. The media was hounding the hospital already since they heard All Might was in the city and was involved in the city, but they also heard about Stain being captured and were wondering what happened in regards to that. As they pushed forward through the reporters, Izuku turned to them and make a quick statement. In regards to the events with Stain, the police will release a statement soon, but I will confirm my involvement. Due to the nature of the case, I will leave all other details of what will be released in regards to the police chief of Hosu, Izuku said as he turned around and walked away. The reporters were happy with that and stepped back and waited for the police chief to come out since they knew he was already inside the building. Izuku walked in and was greeted by the police chief. Thanks for calming them down. Though, can you give me the details of what happened, Woof? Asked the chief. Izuku leads him into a private room where he started to explain everything from Yue's suspicion of their student stupidity and Izuku following along up to the Nomus where Iida ran away from his mentor. Izuku then explained how he got to the site and what he saw. I'm unable to provide details before I arrived on what happened, but I think it's clear he went for revenge but failed like a young idiot, Izuku said, and then kept talking about everything else that happened and how he tried to get the two victims out before Stain stopped him. Izuku did talk about how Iida tried to be an idiot and attack after the effects of Stain quirk came off, but Izuku stopped him. All Might rolled his eyes at the young boy's stupid mistakes. The police chief said that the student could be charged with a lot of crimes if they went after him. Chief, I know you could and should go after him, however, I ask that you let Ua deal with him. He is still bright but was just blind by revenge. Ua still had over 2 years to correct him before he graduates and he could become an amazing hero. Ua would ensure he is punished, though, if you are willing to ignore this incident today. In regards to the involvement of people in the story, you can say Stain attacked a hero and a hero student but was stopped by myself, which is true. You can include other details but keep his name out of it and only identified him as a hero student, Izuku said. All Might agreed with the plan and asked the chief to go with it. The chief thought for a few moments and agreed. Let's go give him a scare for his life and then I'll let him go, stated the chief. Soon they headed and arrived at Iida's room and gave him a scare of his life. 7. The chief walked in with Izuku and All Might. Iida was with his brother who was in this hospital and the family as well. Iida, the police chief is here for you. I suggest you shut up and listen really carefully, Izuku said, and Iida nodded his head. The chief started to speak about the list of crimes that they had on him and the family looked pale. Iida's older brother smacked Iida in the head and told him he was an idiot and they never wanted him to do this. Iida looked up after the police chief finished. Am I going to prison? Iida asked with some tears down his face. The family tensed up at that and looked at the police chief, Izuku, and All Might, who didn't have smiles on their face. Izuku looked at the chief, who nodded. Izuku then spoke. Iida, do you think you shouldn't? Izuku asked. Iida was silent for a few moments before he spoke and agreed that he should since he did what he did. Indeed you should, but you won't be today. Don't take mine, All Might's, and the chief's mercy for granted ever. You will walk away from this without going to prison, but make no mistake that is the end of the mercy. You will be punished harshly by Ua, which includes but is not limited to probation, possible suspension for some time, or other things. I can say for sure you will be on probation likely, and everything else will be decided in a staff meeting between myself, All Might, Aizawa, and Nezu. Do you understand? Izuku asked with a glare, and Iida bowed his head and said he understood. Izuku sighed and talked a bit more. Iida, you could have come to the teachers or me and we would have talked about it. You would have known I would be going after Stain to arrest him, which might have helped stop your anger. I finally understand why Aizawa calls your class the problem children class. Izuku said. Iida was shocked that they were called that. Yes. Your class is called that. It's nothing against you or your classmates, more a fact that your class is seeming to get into so many problems somehow. Izuku stated with a small smile on his face. All Might laughed at it. Iida. I also want to ask why you didn't rely on your friends. Do you know what they would have felt like to find out you died? Let me tell you, as the one that survived my friends, it was horrible. However, I had already promised them I would keep pushing forward, so I didn't allow myself to fall into depression. Though it took a lot of therapy for me to keep pushing ahead, Izuku said. At that moment, Iida realized how badly he screwed up even more. He remembered what their homeroom teacher said about Izuku and his promise of not letting any of them share the same fate as him, and realized how much their senpai cared about their class. After talking a bit more, Izuku and All Might left to return to Ua since they were tired. They got into the rental car that All Might rented to get down to Hosu so he wouldn't be seen, and they just drove back to Ua. All Might drove the car back and they just relaxed in the silence. Hey, Dad, Izuku said, and All Might got caught off guard. His eyes widened as he looked sideways at Izuku as he drove. Izuku was a blushing mess from the embarrassment. Sorry. I won't call you that. Izuku said before All Might cut him off. You can call me that. I was just shocked. So what's up, son? All Might said, and Izuku's eyes widened but closed again soon. I just wanted to say I love all the things you have done for me and I enjoy the time we spend together, Izuku said, but what he left off was the last part. The last part was going to be about the dream, but Izuku decided against it at the last second. Izuku had considered telling All Might about the dream and what he learned, but he couldn't do that to All Might. Izuku would hold off on talking about that new information for now and see how the present goes before making a decision on telling him or not. Izuku was without a doubt not going to tell Aizawa either, who knew about One for All. Aizawa would be pissed and try to lock him down in the dorms or something when that wasn't an option. He also wasn't willing to let Aizawa operate with that thought in his head all of the time, since Aizawa has always felt guilty about his students' deaths. Aizawa wasn't really happy with Izuku having to fight All for One to the death either, and Izuku could see that in his eyes from the last meeting they all had as well. All Might just put a hand on Izuku's head and rubbed it. Izuku smiled and leaned into the touch. I am glad to spend as much time as I can with you, son, as well. All Might said with a smile. Soon they just sat in silence and kept driving back to Ua. 16. After a few hours of driving, they arrived at Ua and dragged themselves to the staff dorms, where they found all the staff. They also found the news talking about Hosu and how All Might was there fighting some creates. They also touched upon how Fulcrum had stopped the hero killer Stain. They had also released a video statement from Stain himself from an interrogation that talked about how Fulcrum was a true hero and he was proud to have been caught by him. Izuku was confused on why they released that. Nezu spoke up though. I'm figuring it is to cut down on crime that would be inspired by him. Up to this point he only claimed All Might as a true hero, but since he is calling you one as well, that means that more than All Might is a true hero, which opens the door for other heroes. They also hope it will bolster the public trust in heroes due to your rising fame. Nezu stated. Izuku nodded his head and then looked at Aizawa. You were right about your class being problem children. Iida was an idiot and tried to go after Stain. He screwed up and was about to die when I arrived, Izuku said as he just dropped onto the couch while still in his outfit. Everyone in the staff just froze in shock and looked at him. I know you said there was a chance, but to think he did it. Nezu said while holding his head in disappointment. Nezu asked what the police were doing about it since their student could be arrested over this. I and All Might worked it out with the police chief. It will be ignored, but they expect us to punish him harshly. I've already warned him about probation for the rest of the year likely and many other things. Izuku said, and Aizawa nodded his head and spoke. That's only the start of it. He's going to be in deep water with Ua for a while over this. Aizawa said. Nezu said the probation would go until the end of the semester instead of full year, but have him doing a lot of other things year-round for the school and some other punishments. Izuku just nodded his head and let Nezu do as he pleased. Aizawa grumbled about problem children being troublesome. 5. Soon the last days of the internships came to an end and the students came back. As Aizawa and Izuku were standing outside the dorms waiting for them all. Most of them arrived together and Izuku saw Iida. He waved his finger and Iida bowed his head and Izuku pointed towards the main building and said to go to the principal's office. Iida just did it without complaint. The class was confused and it looked like neither Izuku nor Aizawa were going to answer their question through Bakugo seemed to know it. He tried to go after Stain didn't he? Bakugo asked Izuku. Izuku just rolled his eyes. UA has no comment on that. However, if you all ever think about doing something stupid like that, no, I will do my best to save you, but UA will rain hell upon you the moment you walk back into our campus. Izuku said. They all just gulped and Bakugo grunted. Everyone was allowed to enter their dorms and go about their day while Izuku and Aizawa went to join the meeting about Iida. 5. Overall, that meeting went smoothly without Iida objecting to any of the punishments. Not like he could in any way. He was on probation for half the year, detentions for the rest of the semester every other day, so Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. During those days he would help around the school with whatever the staff needed but mostly cleanup duty in the support lab. He also had to write a paper on vigilante laws and how they impact society. 4. Izuku, after all of that excitement for the week, soon found himself sitting in the 1A dorms enjoying his time with the students. Izuku found out that they were intending to become close friends with him due to what Aizawa told them. They heard about how the second years are afraid of him after his wrath due to the memorial site incident. Just thinking about that day still brings anger to Izuku, and the class noticed that and learned quickly not to talk about it. One day though, one of the students complained about wanting to swim but the pool was closed for cleaning. Izuku looked at them all, smiled a bit. Who all is wanting to swim? Izuku asked and all of them raised their hands. Izuku told them to get change and bring some towels with them. They were all confused but did as they were told. They wondered if they would be going somewhere off campus, but that required permission from the teachers even though it was the weekend. Soon they all arrived after changing and Izuku told them to follow him. After a short walk, they arrived at the staff dorms. Wait here so I can get change since I might join you in the water though I don't know, Izuku said. They were confused about where they would be going but just waited. A few minutes later their teacher came out and saw them all. He asked what they were doing and he looked confused before his eyes widened really large, which they were confused on why. I'm warning you right now. Izuku is taking you to the pond that is on campus, but the thing is that the memorial site for his brothers is there. Do not disrespect them. The last people that did were expelled. Do you understand? Aizawa said and they all were shocked but nodded quickly. Aizawa explained he was shocked that he was taking them there but was glad he was allowing others to go in that area and not trying to beat them to death. That scared the students and Izuku came out at that moment and looked at their pale faces. He asked what was wrong but Aizawa said he just gave them a warning not to disrespect the memorial site since that is where he is taking them, since it's the only other large water source on campus that isn't within an area that would be in a training zone. Izuku understood and soon led them all to the site. 3. Everyone was shocked at the size of the pond and how it looked. They all thanked Izuku for bringing them to the area while Izuku just grabbed some of the firewood and started the fire. He sat in front of the memorial and just closed his eyes as he fell asleep. The class was shocked at how quickly he fell to sleep. Bakugo then explained, remember he spends nearly 24/7 here if he isn't on patrol or doing something. He would do homework and other things all here at this site. For him, this is a home to him. Bakugo said with a sad smile. After a few moments of silence, it was broken by a loud splash and they saw a few of the boys jumping in the water. They spent a handful of hours at the pond and enjoyed their day. They did notice that Izuku slept the entire time though, which saddened them a bit since he didn't join them. Though they did remember him saying that he was unsure of them joining in or not. Bakugo went and woke Izuku up and asked him if he wanted to join them or not. Izuku looked at the fire and shook his head. Nah. I'm enjoying myself here with them. Izuku muttered as he just went back to sleep. Bakugo nodded his head and said he would wake him up when it's time to go. Izuku just muttered thanks and Bakugo went back and sat on the edge of the water with a sad smile at his Aniki. The others just accepted it and kept hanging out for about another hour before they decided to get out since it would be close to the curfew soon. They woke Izuku up, who looked at the sky and nodded his head. He got up and cleared up the fire by pouring a bit of water on it with a small cup he kept on hand. They all thanked him and he nodded his head. If you all come here without me, just be gentle with the memorial and clean up any messes you make. Otherwise don't come at all, okay? Izuku asked. They all agreed without a problem, and soon they all made it back to the dorms and Izuku went to the staff dorms. The teachers asked how it went and he said fine from what he was told since he just slept at the memorial, which they nodded at. I did tell them that they can go to it when they wish, but to just respect it and clean up any messes they make, Izuku said, and the teachers were shocked. Everyone knew how protective he was of that area after the idiot's first year that one time. They nodded their heads slowly but were privately proud that he was opening up more to the 1A class. Third Pav. 3. Izuku was currently sitting in the staff room. He was reviewing the footage from the final exams since he was out on a patrol during it. Overall, he had to say he wasn't surprised with everything that happened during it. Most of it went as he expected. He was always impressed with Shinso's quirk. Remember, he is in this class instead of Midoriya himself. Closing parenthesis. Shinso made good use of the quirk as he was paired up with another student and was placed against Aizawa, who could negate it and be able to talk. Though he did get Aizawa by changing his voice via the support gear to Izuku's voice. He used Izuku's voice to trick Aizawa. He used Izuku's voice and did a cry of help which shocked Aizawa into responding, which trapped him and got him cuffed. Bakugo was with Kirishima and had to fight All Might, which somehow they won by escaping. Bakugo wanted to blast All Might but gave up after a while and agreed to escape after Kirishima took a punch for him, which guilt-tripped Bakugo into leaving and doing a tactical retreat, or as Bakugo would call it, a retreating to kick All Might's ass later on retreat. Izuku shook his head at that. 3. However, Izuku realized that it was time for the trip to Island as well. Izuku remembered the last trip he took there with All Might. It was fun and he got to meet Melissa, which caused Izuku to blush a bit at remembering her. Izuku shook his head. He knew that it wasn't going to be possible. Not with what was coming for him likely. He didn't want to commend her to heartache. However, he did remember how they got along and how she kissed him on the cheek last time. Goddammit, why does my heart hurt so much? I know very well I can't ever take that anywhere. Izuku thought. Aizawa had come into the room and saw Izuku's expression. What's wrong, Izuku? Aizawa asked, concerned. Izuku came out of his thoughts and stood up. Nothing. It's nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Izuku shouted, sporting a large blush. Aizawa had an idea of what it was about but decided to tease the kid. Girl trouble, he said with a smirk. I don't know. Are you and Mike screwing yet? Izuku said, blunting, and Aizawa choked on his coffee and glared at Izuku. Anyway, it's not meant to be, Izuku said, and Aizawa was confused at that statement. Why isn't it meant to be? Aizawa asked, and Izuku tensed up. I wasn't meant to hear that, was I? Aizawa thought as he watched Izuku since he tensed up. Izuku then looked at Izuku before speaking. There is no way she would want to be with me. I have to keep so many secrets. Then she would need to deal with my episodes of depressions when I just go sit out at the memorial for hours each day. Not to mention anything else that I haven't mentioned. She doesn't need to deal with a basket case of problems. Izuku said as he went back to looking at the videos of the final exam. Aizawa was in shock. Kid, have you talked to anyone about this, or is this the first time you talked about it? Aizawa asked. Izuku just shook his head. First time I started to think about it again. The girl lives on Island. Her name is Melissa Shields. Izuku said as he explained how the last trip went between them. Aizawa nodded his head and sat down next to Izuku. 6. Kid, just try it with her and see how it goes. If you are worried about the secrets of the quirk, then tell her. She's the niece of All Might and would be willing to keep it a secret without a doubt. Also, tell All Might that you intend to tell her since you see it as an issue of starting a relationship with her. Aizawa said. Izuku just sat there and nodded his head, but in his mind, he knew that those were the real reasons why he felt uncomfortable about not getting with her. It's because of his fate to die in the battle against All for One. If the assumptions of the first user are right, then Izuku will be forced to use the final smash. 2. Soon Izuku finished looking over the final exams and decided to go back to his room. He sat on his bed thinking about Melissa Shields. God, I fell hard for her without even realizing it, Izuku thought. He pulled up his phone and texted her. They had stayed in contact for the most part, but Izuku had let the actions he did that night escape him until now. Hey Melissa, how are you doing? Hey Izuku. Good, and you? I good, though I will be coming to see you soon. The trip for Island is coming up again and I will be going with All Might again. I'm wondering if we could go on a date if you are single still. 5. The text went silent for a few minutes and Izuku thought he screwed up. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked that. I'm sorry if you feel uncomfortable around me now. No, it's all right. I would love to. We can go around the place and have a nice day. Good. I look forward to it. 5. Soon the texts came to an end and Izuku was a fool with a smile. He knew he would need to tell her the truth about his likely death, but he wanted to be selfish first and enjoy the date before the mood gets ruined with the horrible news. Izuku could only tell her the truth and let her decide on what to do in regards to the information. He also wondered if it would be good for him to get the information out in the open to someone else instead of keeping it locked up in his mind. He knew from hound dog lessons that it was better to get that sort of information out to someone he wanted to share it with, and Melissa as the person that would need to know it the most. Soon the next few weeks passed and it was time for the trip to Island. Izuku was with Bakugo, who was the winner of the first year's sports festival, as well as All Might, who would be traveling with them. All Might though would be in a closed-off room with the excuse that he needs to sleep since he overworked himself lately. Izuku would keep Bakugo occupied in the front cabin area so he wouldn't see All Might. Luckily they were taking All Might's private plane, which he had converted to have a bathroom, mini food area, and sleeping area in the back for him, so if he had others with him they wouldn't see him. Bakugo was enjoying the time he got to spend with Izuku and All Might, but more so Izuku since All Might was sleeping, or so he was told. Bakugo though saw Izuku looking at his phone and saw a photo of a girl. Who is she? He asked. Izuku blushed hard at that. He gave in at Bakugo's relentless questions since he had refused to show the photo and explain, but gave in at the end. 8. Her name is Melissa Shield. She is the niece of All Might, but not by blood though, Izuku said with a smile. Bakugo hummed in acknowledgement and All Might came in at that statement and asked what about his niece. Bakugo decided to open his mouth and rat Izuku out. Izuku has a crush on Melissa Shield and has her photo on his phone, Bakugo said as he quickly moved away from Izuku. All Might stated at Izuku and didn't know what to think or say. Izuku looked at Bakugo, who was just smirking, and glared at him. He then turned back to All Might, who was just still looking at Izuku with a blank look. We're going on a date when I arrive. So Izuku stuttered out. All Might kept looking at him for a few seconds before calling him to the back to talk. Izuku gulped and followed him. 11. All Might closed the door and dropped his form. So, how did this happen? He asked. Izuku explained how on their last trip the two of them got close and she kissed him on the cheek last time and they kept in contact. I asked her to go on a date knowing we would be coming here. I know it's selfish, but I want to be selfish for once. I also plan to tell her about One for All if we end up seeking a relationship further than the date. Izuku said as he was nervous about what All Might would do to him. He knew he saw All Might as a father and he saw Izuku as a son, but this was his niece. Melissa has been in All Might's life far longer than Izuku has. Dad, please say something, you're making me nervous. Do you not want me to date her? Izuku said. All Might snapped out of his thoughts. It's all right, I was just shocked at how this all happened. Just treat her good or I will take you over my knee, boy. All Might threatened and Izuku got so embarrassed due to the threat that he groaned and hid his face in his hands. I know I will. Please don't make that type of threat again, it's so weird. Izuku said as he left the room and went back to his seat and smacked Bago on the head. That's for telling on me. However, he approved, Izuku said with a smile. Bakugo rolled his eyes and rubbed the place he got smacked on. 6. Bakugo had asked how they met and Izuku explained everything and how it went. Bakugo wished him good luck and Izuku thanked him and hoped it went well. Though Izuku knew that it would end in a horrible mood regardless due to his news, since if she wanted to pursue a relationship she needed to know about that. The plane flew for several more hours and they all fell asleep for a bit before the pilot woke them all up to warn them that they were arriving. Izuku looked out the window and saw the island. He texted Melissa and warned her that they were about to land. She texted back that she would be at the landing area to find him. Soon the plane landed down and they got off it and went through the security. Izuku was truly shocked each time he arrived at island and how big it was. This was a moving island that traveled around the world all the time to keep it more secure so no one could attack it all the time. Most incoming or outgoing flights happened most of the time when it approached one of the countries that it was near, like it's near Japan currently. They moved through the security quickly and arrived in the luggage area and grabbed their things. Then Izuku heard his name called and he turned around to find Melissa flying into him. He was able to catch her just in time and she landed a kiss straight on his lips, causing his eyes to widen. Melissa, hi, I'm sorry that I kissed you. I didn't mean to catch you like that, Izuku said quickly, hoping not to offend her. She giggled and he looked confused. You might not have intended for that to happen, but I did, she said with a sweet smile that made Izuku feel relaxed. Damn it, Izuku. Enjoy it while it lasts because that smile won't be there later on, Izuku thought. Izuku just grabbed her hand and decided to enjoy it all while it lasted. All Might though coughed and got their attention, which caused them to both blush, and Izuku heard a camera sound and saw Bakugo had his phone out. Delete that, Izuku said with a glare. Bakugo just sent it to the group chat for 1A which Izuku was in and he saw it. He glared at Bakugo with a death glare and he just whistled. 15. Melissa soon led them all into the labs and got them to her father. David was happy to see All Might and Izuku again from last year. He also noticed that Izuku and Melissa were holding hands and he inquired about it. They both blushed and Melissa just quickly spoke. We are dating, she said, more of a question. You said that as a question instead of a statement. So, are you boyfriend and girlfriend or not? David asked. Izuku spoke up next. We are going on a date and we will see how it goes and we will let you know, Izuku said as he pulled Bakugo with them and left. Bakugo complained about wanting to stay and talk to the famous David Shield and Izuku said he could do that later but that those two need to talk about important matters. Bakugo accepted it and soon they were out where events and things were going on. They soon separated from Bakugo and started their date. Overall, the night kept going amazing. However, as time passed Izuku knew. He knew he needed to tell her and she could see something was wrong. As such, while they were in a private car on a Ferris wheel, Melissa asked Izuku why he was looking upset. Did you not enjoy the date? I thought it went amazing, she asked worriedly. Izuku snapped out of his thoughts and looked at her quickly. No, it's not the date. It went amazing, and I guess that is the problem. Melissa, I need to talk to you about some private matters and I need to be honest, Izuku said as their car just kept moving on the wheel. Melissa understood and said they should move to her lab and she can disable the cameras and recording devices so they could talk in private. As such, about 10 minutes later they arrived at the lab and started to talk. Izuku sat down across from her and looked at her in the eyes. I'll be honest, Melissa, I feel for you in hard and I fell in love. And that is so selfish of me knowing what I know. It's so unfair for you to be with me that I want to end this, but I want it so much, Izuku said with a tear coming down his eye. Melissa's eyes widened at what he said. He just admitted that he loved her but she didn't understand why it was unfair to her or selfish of him. Why do you get to decide it's unfair to me or it's selfish for you? Isn't that something I should get to decide? She said in a stern tone as she looked at Izuku hard, who had a few tears going down his face. Melissa, can you truly tell me that you are willing to love me and be in a relationship with me after I tell you I'm fated to die? Izuku said with a sad smile. She was confused but was shocked at what she learned. What do you mean fated to die? She asked. Izuku then explained One for All and the entire history of it, including who gave him One for All. There is a reason your father and All Might wanted us out. All Might has a smaller form due to his wound from the villain years ago. That same villain I will be fighting to the death with, hopefully All Might help. Izuku said. Melissa said that they should have a better chance of defeating him if All Might did that much damage last time. Izuku shook his head and explained why All Might could do so much damage. Based on the first user projections, All for One got relaxed after slaughtering so many past users. That is why All Might got that hit in, but All for One will be so more careful with me due to my increased power. Based on the first use, my power currently rivals All for One or might be slightly weaker than him. That doesn't include any quirks he gotten over the years since the last fight either. As such, the first user gave me a powerful attack to use if I feel the battle turning against us. The moment I use it, I'm going to die with only a 20% chance of living. So tell me, Melissa, can you seek a relationship with me knowing I'm going to die most likely? Izuku asked as he held her hands and looked her in the eye with a sad smile. Melissa looked him in the eyes and leaned in and kissed him. His eyes widened in shock. 6. I can, but you must promise me that you won't use that move until you think there is no other option. You need to fight until the last moment and not give up. I can love you and date you if you make me that promise. Melissa said as she was already planning to make inventions to increase Izuku's odds of surviving if he used that move. She also had a plan she wanted to ask of her father, which she would wait on telling Izuku about for now. Izuku broke down in tears as he hugged her. After a bit more they talked about many other things, and Izuku let go about his other issues from his counseling sessions with Hound Dog and everything. She thanked him for trusting all of that to her and was glad he did so. Soon they got up and decided to retire for the night, and Melissa made him stay in her room for the night, which made him blush. 3rd Pav. 1. Izuku woke up and wondered where he was since this wasn't his hotel room. Well, that was until he heard a sound from his side and he looked down and paled at what he saw. Shit, don't tell me we did it. All Might and David Shields will kill me. Izuku thought. Melissa woke up and kissed Izuku on the lips and greeted him. Did we do it? I don't really remember how I got here. ... Izuku said, and she blushed hard. No, we didn't. I invited you back here to cuddle and sleep. Do you not want to do it with me though? She asked with a blush. Izuku noticed his screw up and corrected it. I would love to. I mean, wait. Not what I meant. I was scared since your dad and All Might would murder me if we moved to that stage so quickly. Izuku said with a large blush and waving his hands in front of himself. She chuckled at that thought and agreed with him that they would likely try to kill him. You're as powerful, if not more powerful, than both of them combined, and you're scared of them. She said while laughing. Yay. But I'm sure your dad could build a bomb or something without me knowing and blow me up, Izuku said as he got up and got ready to go to his room to change. I'll meet you in your lab, okay? He said, and she said it was okay. He left to go to this room when he remembered he was sharing a double bedroom with Bakugo. Shit, he better not tell on me, Izuku thought as he opened the door to find Bago changed already and sitting in a chair watching the door. 11. So, where have you been? Bakugo asked with a smirk. Shut it, Izuku said as he grabbed some clothing and walked into the bathroom to change. He just ignored the teasing of Bakugo and came out and left the room to go to the lab to meet Melissa. Bakugo followed behind though, which made Izuku roll his eyes. Soon they arrived at the lab and Izuku found Melissa talking to her dad. Hello sir, Izuku said, and David looked at him up and down. So I hear you spent the night with my daughter? He asked, and Izuku choked on his drink he had in his hands and Bakugo eyes widen. You slept with his daughter on the first date, what the hell? ? Bakugo screamed. I didn't sleep like that with her. We only cuddled and went to bed last night. Yoshiko screamed back and realized All Might had walked in. Shit, Izuku cursed and Melissa told him not to swear. All Might planted a hand on Izuku's shoulder and held on tight. Izuku just gulped and trembled a bit. Remember what I said. Hurt her and I don't care that I see you as my son. I will take you over my knee and smack you publicly, he said. That threat changed from last time, Izuku thought as he nodded his head. Stop bullying him, Melissa called out, and Izuku ran to hide behind her and planted a kiss on her cheek. Thank you for saving me, my hero, he said with dramatic flair. Soon they talked a bit more and David Shield gave his blessings. He also said he approved of her request but didn't say what the request was. 5. After talking a bit more, they went out and explored the city. Bakugo decided to go off on his own again to give the two of them a chance to talk and hang out alone. "Does anyone else know about what we talked about last night?" she asked. He asked if she meant the quirk or the death. She asked about both. Izuku gave her the list of names that knew about the quirk. He didn't say anything about the death though. She asked again and he sighed. "No one but you. I intend to keep it that way, and that reminds me. Can you build a device for me to record a video message to be projected or something? Like the holograms they use for the UA entrance exam or better. I want to record some messages in the event I don't make it. It would be better than reading a paper," Izuku said, and she nodded her head and asked why he didn't tell them. "Aizawa, the former homeroom teacher for me, holds enough guilt about my brother's deaths. All Might isn't the user anymore, and it's my job. If he or anyone else knows, they will try to stop me, which would be troublesome when the time comes that I have no choice but to do it. I think it will be easier for me to have fewer people knowing about it so I can let go easier. Death isn't scary to me. It's the possibility of a sloth death that scares me," Izuku stated. She was silent but nodded her head. "I'll make the devices. They will be easy to make, and I think I might already have a large amount made. We have used them before to pass messages on the island before we upgraded to a different method. So I will see what I can find when we return to the lab," Melissa stated. Izuku nodded his head, and they soon enjoyed their day. After a while, they returned to the lab and they found some devices. Izuku would take them all back with him to make messages. He had her show him how to do it so he knew for later. Izuku did learn that the entire Class 1A was on the island with them. Even Iida was here since his probation ended a week before the trip. Some of them had tickets due to their families and brought other classmates. A few came and worked on the island to pay for their trip. Izuku just laughed when he saw them all on the island. They all questioned who Melissa was since Bakugo sent a picture of them kissing to the group chat. Izuku and Melissa soon answered a range of questions and met their curious needs. After a while, they stopped and the day went about itself. The expo was tonight and they would all be attending it since Melissa would get the others in with some spare tickets. However, the night wasn't going to go as they all hoped. Soon the night was going well, but the security system got tripped near the start of the expo. Izuku went into his hero mode and surprise, he had a hero outfit on under his suit. Melissa just giggled at him and he got to work. He directed the class to follow him to retake the control room since quirks could be used freely on the island. As such, they forced their way up the control room and Izuku leads the charge, which made it go quite easy. He just destroyed the robots in his path and dodged all the bullets quite quickly. However, the issue came when they got to the control room. They found one David Shield helping the intruders. Izuku and Melissa were confused and shocked. Then they learned from the villain named Wolfram that he was paid to steal the device when in truth he was an actual villain that had betrayed David Shield since he had a higher buyer for the machine. 4. This caused one man to get shot in the chest while Izuku fought the villain for the device. Melissa tried reactivating the system and getting it under her control while Izuku fought for the device and David Shield. The villain had a powerful quirk though, and it appeared to be multiple, which raised concerns in Izuku's mind. Izuku was blasting the metal blocks that were being sent his way, but some trapped him, but he broke free of them easily. It was just annoying going through all the blocks, so Izuku powered up to 100% and caused a large gush of wind which allowed him to quickly get up to the helicopter that the villain was escaping on. He pulled the helicopter back and tossed it towards the roof, which could handle the stress. He also did this while grabbing David Shields. The villain jumped out of the helicopter as it went down and crashed on the roof. Izuku gave his girlfriend's father to members of the 1A class and told them to guard him. Izuku faced off against the villain and went to attack. Right as he did, all Mig FHT jumped out and slugged the guy across the face, knocking him right towards Izuku, who slugged him as well. 4. This shocked the villain, who got to his feet and controlled the metal quickly and sent All Might and Izuku away from him. They both powered up and charged the villain and dodged attacks or broke through them. Soon they got up to him and both landed a punch on the metal, blocking them from cracking it. At that moment All Might grabbed an arm and pulled the villain forward, and Izuku grabbed the headgear that connected to the device and ripped it apart. The villain screamed out and tried to use his quirk, but it was too slow compared to the device, so Izuku quickly ended the fight. As they finished the fight, they secured the device and detained the villain and his men. Soon other heroes made their way up the building after they got freed. Security from the island also arrived and detained David Shield for his role in the incident. Izuku knew that it wasn't going to be good for Melissa on the island due to her father's actions. All Might, we should see about getting Melissa to return to Japan with us. With her father's actions, it might become a hostile environment for her here. She would be good as a third-year support course student since the academy here is better. All she would need is a lab to herself and she could help boost Yue's abilities. Izuku said, and All Might agreed. He didn't agree with what David did, but he would still consider him a friend and protect his daughter. It would also let the young couple be closer more since David would be in trouble for some time. 5. Soon the night progressed and David was detained to his lab with a guard at the door. He was going to be under watch 24/7 from now on. Melissa had actually asked her father to allow her to transfer to UA, which he had approved before he did everything that night. Nezu had approved the request the moment he received the email, meaning that the island couldn't stop her from leaving and they wouldn't risk going against All Might even though they could on this matter. Melissa wasn't an official scientist of the island, so their contracts didn't bind her nor prevent her from leaving without permission as it did for her father or others. Izuku was glad for that and was glad they didn't have to get into a dispute with Island over it. Melissa was sad that she was leaving her father like this, but she had already planned to leave beforehand anyway. David just told his daughter to go since it would be better due to his actions and that others would not trust her due to him. She would have Izuku and All Might in Japan to help and care for her, unlike him who would be limited in his movements now due to the incident. 1. She agreed in the end and they packed their belongings. They would all be returning a few days earlier on all of their flights since Island was doing upgrades and different security measures now due to the incident. As such, Izuku had helped Melissa pack everything since she would be moving to UA permanently. All Might had also taken guardianship of her under his real name to hide their connection. Soon the day came and it was time to leave for Japan again. They boarded All Might's private plane with all of Melissa's things and flew away after David and Melissa said their goodbyes. 2. This was how the trip to Island came to an end and soon they arrived back in Japan. All Might had taken her to the private room to show her the form since Izuku had told her about one for all. He decided not to hide it and Melissa acted shocked since she knew already from Izuku, but they didn't need to tell him that. They talked for a bit before Melissa rejoined Izuku in the front. They just snuggled in their seats next to each other and slept until they arrived back in Japan. Melissa would be living in the support course dorms but would be allowed to visit Izuku's dorm as she pleases due to their relationship and the fact that Izuku are more or less staff, so they weren't concerned about him studying and Melissa's education was already further than Yue's. She mainly just needed a lab to work in to create things. 9. After they arrived, Izuku decided to start recording personal messages for everyone. He knew he would need to update them later on if anything changed, but he wanted to make sure he had them all done just in the case of a fight breaking out with All for One without them planning for it. Izuku had quite a few heartful moments in those recordings. Especially the ones to his mother, Aizawa, All Might, and Nezu. He did make an overall general one for the entire class of 1A and then made personal ones that were more centered towards them each, but they weren't as heartful as the more personal ones that he really needed to have done. Those had a lot of touchy topics and some secrets in them. Izuku asked Melissa to believe the devices in the event of his passing or if he was in critical condition and it didn't look good. He told her where he put them and the location of the key for it since the devices contained secrets, so he made sure to hide them in his room and someone would have to be really searching or already know their location to find them. 3rd POV. 3. A few more weeks passed since Melissa had arrived in Japan. Izuku had been working on his training and Melissa had been working on some project that took most of her focus. When anyone asked her about it, she told them that it was a device she was aiming to make to improve medical care without the need for extremely powerful quirks. Recovery Girl got interested in it after a short period and was helping with any medical knowledge that Melissa needed. Izuku had an idea of why she was making it and confirmed it one night when they were cuddling in his room. "Melissa, is that new device you're working on meant for me?" Izuku asked and she was silent before she answered. Yes, I want to increase those odds of you walking away alive from the fight. I will still respect your request on passing the messages if it looks like you might not make it, but until you flatline and can't be retrieved back I refuse to give up hope, so neither are you allowed to give up. She said as she kissed him. Izuku just kissed back and promised he would do everything he could until he was too tired to keep pushing anymore. Melissa accepted that and soon they went to sleep that night. 4. Soon the next day came and it was also time for the 1A students to get ready and leave for the summer camp. Izuku himself nor All Might would be going. They both would be staying back and looking for the League and All for One. Izuku would also be training since he had just hit 100% in the past day, so he needed to adjust and get used to being able to use the current 100% before expanding the power and growing it. Izuku was glad he hit 100% since he felt off. As if someone was going to happen. There was a recent encounter between Shigaraki and Iida at the mall. Shigaraki wanted to know why Stain was so liked and popular but not him. Iida luckily learned to be less stiff and was able to keep his calm when Shigaraki brought up Stain. However, that incident didn't make the feeling go away. It only made the feeling worse in all honesty. He warned the other staff and they agreed to be on watch, but lately, nothing has happened so they didn't know what it might be. Izuku explained that the feeling hasn't gone away and to be careful on the camp trip. They had changed the location from one location to another one that was owned by the Pussycats. They owned a few camps, so it was an easy change for the school to make. As such, they made it extremely last minute. They did have some concerns about a mole, but all the staff came back clean, which meant it had to likely be a student. Nezu did look into Monoma per Izuku's request, but nothing was found that appeared out of normal currently, so they couldn't do anything. They could only keep waiting and hope everything went smoothly. As the students arrived at the camp the next day, they were met with the wild Pussycats. Eraserhead asked where the little kid they had last time was at. Ah, you mean Kota, he's with his parents. Thought Kota pouted when he learned that your class wasn't Fulcrum's class. He thought he had a chance at seeing his favorite person again. Stated Manlande of the WWPs. Eraserhead explained to the class that Izuku had defeated a villain during one of his past cases that almost killed two heroes that were the parents of a little kid who was a huge fan now of Izuku. They all nodded their heads in understanding and soon they found themselves at the bottom of the mountain with Eraserhead telling them to get to the camp before walking off. The members of the rescue heroes said that they needed to get to the camp before noon to get their meals cooked for them or else they had to cook for themselves. Everyone soon got running but was met with the wild beasts that the heroes had created via a quirk. Everyone was panicking but still fell into a team formation and were working their way through. 6. The heroes and Eraserhead soon arrived at the camp and the students missed the deadline by about 3 hours and had to cook their own meals. They all groaned at missing lunch and the fact that they now had to cook their entire meals themselves now. Though they groaned, they soon got to work since dinner wouldn't make itself. After about 40 minutes of working, they soon finished making their dinner and they all sat down to eat for the night. Everyone was enjoying their night, though some were surprised that their senpai Izuku wasn't with them since he normally comes to things with them. They asked their teacher and he was quiet for a bit. He's at the school training. Also, he wouldn't be able to maximize his training here since his upper limit would wipe this forest out, so he needs to train in the facilities at the school, which we can easily repair due to staff on hand. Aizawa said before walking away. The students were surprised. They were all wondering how strong their senpai was. They know he took out that creature that was made to kill All Might, but his upper limit could wipe this forest out. That was shocking and scary at the same time. However, soon they went back to their meals and enjoyed the night since they would be training non-stop starting tomorrow. The class went to sleep and soon the next day came. Class 1B also arrived on the second day since the first day events were part of Aizawa training plans and not Vlad King's training plans for his class. 1B was shocked to see how their sister class was working since they were all doing different things to the extreme. 1B soon got to work on their own training and everyone was doing anything and everything that they could. This went on throughout the entire day with all different pieces of training. Bakugo was trying to create larger explosives by heating himself up more, while Todoroki was changing the water temperature by using his ice and fire. Soon though the night descended onto the camp and it was time for a fun game of scaring each other in the forest. However, none of them realized that the ones doing the scaring weren't going to be them. 1. On a mountain to the far side there stood a group of villains who were looking down at the camp. They were the Vanguard Action Squad and were sent to try and kidnap a student. They no direct target but a few names of people that might become good villains. One was Hitoshi Shinso, who they figured was treated horribly in the past due to his quirk, so they were hoping they could persuade him to join them after they kidnap him. It would also be a massive hit to the hero's reputation and UA's as well if they lose a kid. As such, as the night dragged on and the students entered the forest, the villains got to work. 9. Half an hour later there was screaming and fighting going on throughout the entire forest. The blue flames and purple gas that littered the air depicted the night one of a scene from hell. In separate portions of the forest, the fighting was going hard. Aizawa himself was fighting a villain with a fire quirk, but it disappeared after he kicked it. It appeared to be a clone. In other portions of the forest, the students were attempting to make their retreat towards the main portion of the camp. Some people easily made it back to the camp while others didn't have such an easy trip back. For example, Bakugo ended up getting taken in a marble due to being an easy target that was a bit separate from the group since their main target was too close to others for the villain to grab and shrink into a marble. This caused a hunt by the UA students to get their classmate back, and they chased the villain down for roughly 5 minutes before arriving in a field. In this field though was several other villains were preparing to escape. "Did you get the target?" asked the fire user, and the marble villain said no. "It was too hard, but I did get another one," he said, but was then attacked by a laser from Aoyama. At that moment when Mr. Compress let go of the marble, the others from the class that chased them down grabbed it. They had also discovered that the villain had taken another student, Tokiyami. They were lucky and grabbed his marble as well. "You lead them right to us," Dabi the fire user stated. Shinso used his quirk and matched the voice of the other villain and responded back with a question to try and get the fire user since he wouldn't see the mouth of the masked villain move. "Yay, what you want me to do about it?" Shinsho yelled in Mr. Compress's voice, which Dabi responded to without thinking and got trapped. Soon after trapping Dabi in his quirk, Aizawa arrived and used his quirk on the masked villain, stopping him from making marbles to trap the students in. The villain complained but called for a Kirigori to remove them. The masked villain grabbed Dabi, knocking him out of the control, and they retreated. This signaled the retreat of the villains on the entire attack. Aizawa and the others would later learn that Yaoyorozu and a student from 1B worked together and were able to secure a tracking device onto the Nomu that was attacking them before it left into a warp portal. This would provide the heroes with a clue on where to find the villain's base of operations at. The fight ended with no one getting kidnapped, but several of the wild pussycats would be out of commission for a while due to the number of wounds they received in the battle. It was expected that they would be out of commission for roughly 2 or 3 months. Overall, the villain's mission ended in failure, but it still caused a shockwave in society. Everyone was asking how the villains kept attacking Ua and why wasn't the heroes stopping this group of villains already. As such, these questions did end up hitting the reputation of the heroes heavily, since people were getting tired of hearing about Ua allowing their students to be in danger when they didn't have a provisional license yet. 4. Izuku and All Might were both worried. They were glad no one got kidnapped, but it concerned them on the number of attacks that this league of villains was doing. They were both sitting in a private meeting room talking. "From what we've been told, they have a location on where the Nomus are located at. This means we will likely find him there," Izuku said as he drank some tea. All Might sat there in silence for a bit before talking. "Indeed, the police are looking to find anyone matching the descriptions of the villains at the camp before we launch our attack. They are trying to find if there are any other locations we need to hit," stated All Might. Both of them sat there in silence. They both knew that this was likely going to be it. That they would be going in and fighting All for One if he was there. A few days passed and the students had arrived back at the school from the camp and from getting checked out at the hospital. Izuku went and checked in on them to see how they are doing. "How are you all doing?" Izuku asked them, and they looked worn out. Some said they were fine while others were silent. Izuku didn't believe them. "It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be tired of this situation that your class has found itself in. I promise you UA will work on stopping them and bringing this to an end. I made a promise to protect you all the best I can and I will do that. Izuku said, even if I end up dying to ensure that they never have to fear All for One. Izuku thought. This statement from Izuku made them relax a bit since they knew they had their senpai looking after them. The one who was thought of as the next symbol of peace in the public eyes. Izuku sat down with them and just let them relax with him around. Another day passed when the detective arrived at the school with information. They had located the main hideout of the League of Villains with the warehouse for the Nomus as a secondary location. 3. It was now time for them to start their attack on the League of Villains. It was time to prepare themselves and gather the heroes. Late that morning the conference room was filled with heroes of all different ranks. All Might, Izuku, Endeavor, Best Jeanist, and many other heroes and police officials were all in the room listening into the meeting. Principal Nezu was briefing everyone on the mission details before they would set off and hunt down the League of Villains. The other heroes were warned of a potential mastermind in the background who could rival All Might in strength, and this made everyone that didn't know about this pale. Some like Endeavor tried to call bullshit, but All Might backed up the claim and told a bit about the last fight he had with the man and that neither came away unscathed. All Might told them all about the indecent a bit without telling them about his from or wound. They all knew of the destruction from the incident he was talking about and had believed it was a terror attack by villains as the government reported, but All Might said it was covered up per his request since they believed the villain to be dead but have been proven wrong. This made everyone tense up at the mission they were walking into now. However, they were all determined to go through with it and end the threat known as the League of Villains. Aizawa nor other teachers from UA would be attending the raid. Nezu was keeping them back to protect UA in the event of a counterattack by All for One and to ensure the students' safety. Since Class 1A has a thing for getting into trouble. As such, the meeting came to an end and the raid was planned for that night. Izuku decided to make his peace with everyone that he could since he could feel One for All burning brightly inside of himself. He knew that he had a low chance of walking away from this fight alive, and if he used that move like he thought he would need to, then his fate was sealed for the most part. Izuku had also talked to the first user in a dream again the previous night. Izuku had come to a decision on not passing One for All on anymore. If he passed it on, he would lose access to the portion of the pool that he needed for the final move, which would decrease his odds of winning, which the first user had agreed that he couldn't risk passing it on. Soon Izuku arrived outside of Melissa's dorm room and he knocked on it. Time to start making my peace, Izuku thought as the door opened. Third Pav. Izuku had knocked on the door of Melissa and after a few moments, the door opened. Izuku smiled at seeing her and asked to come in, which she did let him in. He sat down on the couch in her bigger-sized dorm room since the support course has given larger rooms due to them tending to take things back into their dorms to work on. Izuku waved for her to come to sit down with him, which she did. "What's wrong, Izuku?" she asked because she could see something was bothering her. Izuku thought for a few moments and then spoke after a pause. "I've come to say I love you and that I enjoyed all the time we've had together." "Thank you for loving me knowing my fate, Melissa," Izuku said with a sad smile. She was confused for a few seconds before she realized what he was talking about. "No. Why, how is it going to be this soon? I thought we had a year or two before you would end up finding him," she asked with a few tears down her face. Izuku just hugged her and whispered sweet nothings into her ear. "We are more or less sure that All for One is behind the League of Villains. This means when we attack tonight we have a high chance of encountering him. We have 2 locations we are hitting and either can have him in it," Izuku stated. She just nodded her head and hugged him. After about 30 more minutes, Yojiku looked at the clock. It was getting closer and closer to the time for him to go. He pulled out his phone and called a number. The phone ranged for several seconds before someone picked up. "Hello, sweetie. How are you tonight and is everything okay?" asked the voice on the other end of the phone. Melissa looked up once she heard what was said and was confused about who he was calling since the other person called him sweetie. Izuku just smiled and then spoke. "Hey, Mom, I'm good. Are the others there tonight since tonight is usually a get-together between you all?" Izuku asked since he was hoping to catch them all at once. Inko was silent for a few seconds before he could hear multiple voices. "You're on speaker now, son," Inko said, and Izuku could hear everyone asking him how he was. Izuku just told them he was okay before Inko asked what was wrong, since she could hear something in his voice. Can't hide it from you, can I, Mom? Izuku said with a sad chuckle. Izuku took a deep breath in and a deep breath out. He looked at the picture he had in his hand that he pulled from his wallet. It was of him and his two brothers with their entire family in it. 4. Mom, everyone, thank you for everything you have done for me in my life. I just wanted to call you before I no longer have the chance. Izuku said, and at that, the parents were concerned and asked what he meant by too late. The summer camp attack was done by the League of Villains. We found a few locations we will be hitting tonight, which means I will be facing All for One tonight if he is found in the base. As such, I wanted to speak to you all one more time before I go. Izuku said with tears down his face. He could hear them all break down on the other side of the line. Inko was asking him why he sounds like he has given up when the fight hasn't even started. Izuku honestly didn't know. He knew he would be doing all he can, but he also knew that the odds of walking away alive were slim. All for One, based on the first user's statement, would not take risks with Izuku due to being a match for All Might already, and that Izuku could only grow even stronger to outpace All for One. But the problem with that is that growing past the 100% and beyond will take time, which they don't have since the fight is going to happen now. I'm not giving up, but All for One is equal or slightly stronger than my current power. Even with All Might, he won't take chances as he did with All Might all those years ago. I need to be realistic that I might not walk away from this, since I have no plans to let him walk away either. I plan to end the fight, this war, once and for all, no matter what. So I can't tell you I will walk away alive, but I can tell you I will do my best until I'm just too tired to get up anymore. Okay, Izuku said as he cried. Melissa just hugged him tighter as he talked to his parents. Izuku could hear them sobbing as they said they understood. Please stay with each other tonight. I don't know when the news will break of the fight, but it will be very destructive, so it will without a doubt catch the media's attention. I want to tell you not to watch it, but I know you will. I know you will want to watch me, so please just stay together tonight and help each other. Izuku said, and they said they would. They talked a bit more and then talked about the Izuku's brothers. One of Izuku's brothers' parents spoke up. Izuku, just don't give up until the final moment, please. They don't want you to come this soon, okay? They said, and Izuku said he knew, but it was out of his hands now. Soon the conversation came to an end and the phone call ended. Izuku looked at the clock and saw he had about an hour or so left before the heroes were meant to gather up. Izuku needed to go see Aizawa and 1A. He honestly didn't get close to 1B like he intended to do, and instead got close to 1A due to all the things they went through. He had nothing against 1B, but the USJ and everything else was pushing 1A to be far better heroes due to the experience. Izuku told Melissa where he was going and she let him go. She said she was going to the lab and start to work on the device and see if there is anything that can be improved in the short period, since nothing else major could be done to it. Izuku told her to not blame herself if it didn't work, but to keep pushing forward. Melissa, I love you, so even if I do die I want you to find someone else, okay? Izuku said with a smile. Melissa just let tears go down her face as she kissed Izuku. Soon Izuku started his walk to 1A. Izuku knew Aizawa was in the dorms as well to keep a watch on the students, since he didn't want to lose any of them due to stupid actions. Izuku stood outside the dorms and breathed in some air and looked around. He did make a stop at the memorial site before going to Melissa's dorm, and he was glad he did. It helps put him at ease and it gave him the strength to do all of these talks. 4. Izuku walked into the dorms and saw that everyone was downstairs playing a game on the TV or doing other things with each other. Izuku also saw Aizawa in his sleeping bag on the floor on one side of the common rooms. Izuku just grinned at seeing that. Then someone noticed him come in and called out for him, which caused everyone to look at him and smile. Aizawa looked up and hid a smile under his scarf, but Izuku could tell he was smiling due to the uplift of part of his face that wasn't hidden. Izuku walked over and sat on a couch and looked at Aizawa, who just raised an eyebrow. It feels like it's been a long time since you and I first met, sensei. I remember the first day we met in 1A where you sacked people left and right. It was scary as hell, to be honest. Izuku said with a laugh. Aizawa and everyone was confused about why Izuku was bringing the past up now. Remember how you called me out on only using 15%? Izuku said, and Aizawa spoke up. Yay, I was surprised to learn that you were such a late bloomer. God, it explains so much about how you acted back then. Aizawa said as he sat up against the wall. They sat there talking about the first year and how the class went. It was so weird when we got down to just the three of us. I was so happy, to be honest, since the other classmates tried to murder us that one time. Izuku said, and the 1A was shocked to hear that statement and asked for details. Aizawa explained the situation and what happened, and Class 1A was glad they got expelled. Izuku just laughed at them as they were telling him that he and his brothers were cool for dealing with all those people and that they were amazing heroes. We had plans to open an agency called the Misfits, you know. However, we will never get to do that, sadly. Izuku said in a sad tone. Aizawa's face twisted with some guilt, which Izuku saw. Sensei, stop blaming yourself. You're going to end up blaming yourself for my death as well, Izuku said with a joking tone, which Aizawa snapped at. No, because you are going to die at an old age and after I kick the bucket. He snapped, and Izuku looked at him. Aizawa didn't like the look at all. Izuku smiled, but Aika could tell it was a sad smile. 4. Oh come on sensei. You know me. I always give it my plus ultra. Izuku said with a smirk. Izuku then continued the conversation for a bit longer, but noticed the time went by quite easily. It was more or less time for him to start heading to the meetup point for the raid. Izuku asked Yaoyorozu to make a camera and a stand that could take delayed pictures. She was confused but did it nonetheless. Everyone, you need to get up and together so we can take a photo, Izuku said. They were confused on why but did it per his request. Come on sensei, you need to get up in this as well, Izuku said as he went over and dragged Aizawa by the end of the sleeping bag to the group. Aizawa just grumbled that he didn't need to be in the photo. Izuku got him out of the sleeping bag and standing in the group. After a few seconds the photo was taken, and then they did some fun ones as well. Izuku thanked them all and asked for a photo of just Aizawa and him. Aizawa was confused but complied nonetheless. As they were standing there, Izuku started to talk to Aizawa. Sensei, I meant what I said. Don't blame yourself for my death, please, Izuku said in a sad tone. This concerned Aizawa greatly. He attempted to ask what he meant, but the flash went off. Aizawa rubbed his eyes and looked, but Aizawa had quickly left, leaving Aizawa alone. The class looked confused on why Izuku left so quickly but didn't think anything of it. Aizawa, though, a few moments later after sitting down, received a text message from Nezu. It read, a hero team was put together and is setting off to raid the League of Villains. He is likely to be there. Keep your students locked down in the dorms so they don't do something stupid, since Fulcrum and All Might are entering a death match against him, stated the text from Nezu, and at that moment all the pieces of the puzzle went together. Izuku Midoriya aka Fulcrum was saying his final goodbyes to everyone. Aizawa saw Bakugo and a few others get ready to go train in the gym since the curfew was a few hours away. He spoke up to stop them. 2. Listen up. No one is permitted to leave the dorms tonight. If I find you out of the dorms, you will be dealt with. This is an order from the principal, Aizawa stated. The ones that were going to go train groaned and complained, but Aizawa just walked to the TV and changed it from their game to the news station. He kept the remote with him. The other students complained about their game being cut off and looked at him in confusion. If you don't have a need to be anywhere else in the dorm, then I want you to stay in the common room area where I can watch you. I've put it on the news for an important reason which you will understand soon, Aizawa said, and the students were scared since it felt like UA was going on lockdown in preparation for something. However, what they didn't know but would soon is that Japan was about to undergo a great change, and it would put everyone on the edge of their seats waiting for news of what would happen next. Izuku was sitting in a private car that was transporting him and All Might to their site. All Might would be dropped off for the raid on the warehouse while Izuku went in on the bar location. Remember, Master, don't fight him alone if you don't have to. I will arrive as soon as possible if he isn't at my site. You are not allowed to die, since this is my responsibility as the current user and not yours anymore. You have done enough. Izuku said with determination in his voice. All Might looked at his boy and spoke. Neither am I going to stand by and watch you die. Even when I got that lucky hit all those years ago, he was as strong if not more than I was. Izuku. Don't die, my boy. All Might stated. Izuku just didn't reply, which concerned All Might greatly, but he had to push it aside since they had arrived at his drop-off point. Izuku would take about 3 minutes to arrive at his drop-off point, and the mission would start within a few minutes of his arrival. This was the night that would go down in history without anyone realizing it. This was the night of true titans clashing against each other, and only titans could get involved in the fight because everyone else was just too weak to even get near. Third POV. Everyone was moving and yelling was going on all around them. Izuku had led his team, which included heroes like Endeavor, into the bar. Endeavor complained why the number 2 should have to take a back seat to a hero with no rank like Fulcrum. Everyone just rolled their eyes since they knew he hated Izuku due to being All Might's protege. Now though, back to the fighting. Izuku had busted in the wall and had gone straight for Shigaraki as other heroes knocked out Kurogiri. The league members thought they had killed the warp user, but the heroes just said he was out cold for a while. Kamui Woods had detained everyone else in his wood branches. Izuku looked into Shigaraki's eyes and asked him where his master was at. Shigaraki just started to laugh out and everything thought he was crazy. Why is he laughing? They are all captured and they can't warp out of here. So what is so funny? Izuku thought as he stared at Shigaraki. Do you think that this is the end? That we are done? You still need to take my master out, and we know that it won't be easy to do. Shigaraki stated. Izuku's face strained as he tried to maintain his smile since he knew Shigaraki was right. This was far from over until All for One was detained. Gran Torino, who had come with Izuku and had tensed as well since he knew that it was true as well, but all of the other heroes didn't realize how dangerous All for One was. Even though they were told about his strength, none of them have seen All for One nor seen what he has done through the memories of the past users. That is when it all happened. Shigaraki looked at Izuku with a smirk and said his next line. Also, who says we are captured? He stated as some sludge or something appeared out of their mouths and swallowed them all up. It was also at that moment that they felt the earth shake. Izuku went out of the building to be met with a large number of Nomus fighting the police and heroes. However, what worried him the most was the fact that there was a large amount of smoke coming from where All Might should be at. Izuku turned to Gran Torino and they both nodded. They blasted off from the ground and went flying through the air. Izuku was using float while Gran Torino used his quirk. This feels like that time with Nana as we went and fought All for One all those years ago. Brat, what are you planning? Also, don't hide anything since I'm not an idiot like Toshinori and will believe you so easily. I've lived long enough to tell through a lot of bullshit. Gran Torino said as they were going through the air. Izuku gritted his teeth. Can't hide anything from you, old man, Izuku said as they got closer and closer. Izuku decided to tell the truth since he knew Gran Torino would hate him for it due to what it would do to All Might, but he would most likely accept it even though he hated him and it. I'm going to die here, Gran. The first user came to me in a dream before the events in Hosu and gave me a warning. He told me that All Might got lucky last time and All for One won't do that this time around. All for One has enough strength to rival me right now or be stronger. If I had time to expand the Beyond portion, then I could take All for One on in the future, but we don't have time. Nor can it be passed on without the quirk weakening due to the quirk singularity or what the first believe. Izuku said, and the sight was coming closer and closer. They would arrive within a few minutes. So you are just going to go in there and die? Quote. Gran Torino yelled as he looked at Izuku with a face filled with pain. No, I will fight as long as I can with All Might. If the fight turns south and it looks like we won't win, you are to get All Might out of there. I will keep fighting as long as I can until it looks like I have no other options except to rely on the last resort method that the first user gave me. Izuku said. Gran was confused. What was the last resort method? He asked Izuku and Izuku explained it. 2. The last smash. It will take everything in the pool of energy that we can't naturally touch without breaking our bodies. It will take it all and flow it through my body, but that will be it. Odds of surviving the first user puts at 20%. I would need to get All for One high up in the air to perform it as well, since it will destroy anything around me in a range that I don't know of." Izuku yelled. They had landed and saw what was in front of them. The other heroes that were assigned here were wiped out. All Might was currently fighting with All for One, but he looked beat up, while All for One was looking fine except for the metal mask on his head. "Gran Torino, promise me, if things turn for the worse then you need to get my master out of the fight. If things turn south for me, stop him from getting involved, since I have a plan to use the final smash if it comes to it. That is why I said I will die here. I have no intentions of letting All for One walk away alive," Izuku said. Gran Torino gritted his teeth and looked at Izuku with a face full of anger. "He doesn't know, does he?" he asked as they looked for a chance to get involved and land hit. Izuku said no, and then after a few minutes of silence he saw the chance and dashed off with 100% behind his kick from the ground. He had float on and came flying straight for All for One and slammed into him, which sent him flying to the other side of the destroyed zone. However, Izuku knew he did 0 damage. He felt a cushion or something before he connected to All for One. Must have some shock absorption or nullification quirk, Izuku thought. Fulcrum. All Might called out and landed next to Izuku. Gran Torino started to work on saving people that he could see and getting them out of the battle zone. He ordered that to any hero that came as well. Izuku peeked above them and saw the news helicopter. Izuku just kept his smile on even though he was scared. Who wouldn't be scared of dying at the hands of All for One? That man would not make death painless. 1. As Izuku and All Might were fighting, the students back in the dorms were shocked and stunned. They were watching the news when an emergency broadcast came over. They were all already on guard due to how their teacher was acting, but the moment those words came across, their teacher shot right up and sat down on the couch near the TV. This caused them all to watch the TV closely as well. Then they heard the voice of the reporter. "We come with breaking news. A raid by a large force of heroes and police has started in multiple locations. We will show both locations due to having a helicopter at both right now, so your screen will be split between them," stated the reporter. They watched as 2 fights were going on. The raids on both locations had already started, and then an explosion went off at the location All Might was at. This scared everyone due to the scale of destruction that happened. A good portion of the area was gone and buildings had fallen. It was chaos. Even the other heroes on site were all on the ground and bloody. The class was scared and wondered who could cause that level of destruction. Soon they saw at the other site that more Nomus had appeared and started to fight the heroes and police. They then saw an old man and Fulcrum come out and dash off. Where are they going? Why aren't they helping the heroes and officers at their location? Iida asked, confused. Aizawa spoke up. They are heading to the other location to support All Might, Aizawa stated, and they were confused on why All Might would need support since he is All Might. Aizawa could see the confusion on their faces. All Might is human. He isn't unkillable, and the opponent he's going to face that caused all that destruction, we already know he has the ability and strength to kill All Might. That is why Fulcrum, who is as strong if not stronger than All Might now, is going to help. It's better if they both fight the supervillain, and yes, I said supervillain, Aizawa stated. That fact scared them all. There was a villain that was able to fight and kill the All Might, the symbol of peace. 2. Soon they saw All Might and the supervillain fighting, and it looked like the villain had multiple quirks. Aizawa fed them information so they wouldn't ask too many questions. Nezu had already approved of it. There are many quirks in this world. Some, like All Might's, Fulcrum's, and this supervillain, are some of the weirdest and strange ones. What you are seeing is indeed multiple quirks. The villain's quirk allows him to take, give, and combine quirks at his will. That is why he is a supervillain. He's been alive since the dawn of quirks, and he's always been kept in the shadows due to a legacy of people that knew about him and sacrificed their lives to keep him in the darkness. Though I'm not allowed to explain any more of the legacy, just know that All Might and Fulcrum are both a part of the legacy, Aizawa stated. That only created more questions, but they kept silent. After watching All Might fight the supervillain, they saw the amount of damage he was sustaining. They also saw how the villain had little to no damage. They were all scared. Then they saw in the far-off side of the battle Fulcrum arriving with the older man. They stayed on the side of the battle, and people in the room were wondering why they weren't helping. They are playing it smart. They are looking for a chance to land a large blow and to try and change the flow of the battle to their advantage. Aizawa said, and right after he finished Izuku had burst off and caught All For One off his guard as he tried to raise an arm to block, but Izuku landed a blow on him, sending him flying away from All Might. Yes, they all cheered out. Switching back to the battlefield, Izuku and All Might split apart as a large blast came between them as All For One raised up and out of the rumble from the building, falling onto him. He only had a large indent on the helmet where Izuku landed the punch, which pissed Izuku off. Surprised that there is only an indent. I made this mask to withstand quite a few blows from you both. All For One said, and you could tell he was smirking based on the tone of his voice and body language. Izuku gripped his fist and moved back towards All Might. They looked each other in the eyes before dashing off. 4. Gran Torino had gone and took some heroes after the League members that were still on site. All For One noticed this and decided to try and send the League members away before they got arrested, but Izuku wasn't having it. He promised the class that this all would come to an end, and he intended to keep that promise. The moment All For One sent a blast towards the other heroes, Izuku jumped in front of it and crossed his arms and did a 100% downward cross attack that created a large wall of air that blocked the blast. Oh, interesting application, All For One stated. Gran Torino and the other heroes got back to work on the League members, and Izuku just charged towards All For One, who had just tossed All Might away and into a building. Every time Izuku tried to get close to All For One, he aimed an attack at the other heroes, forcing Izuku to retreat and block it since it was strong enough to wipe those heroes out. They also needed to stay around and rescue the civilians as well, or else those people would die or get dragged into the fight. As such, All For One had a strong advantage in the fight, and he knew it. As he forced Izuku to keep away and defend the others, he just kept his attacks on All Might going, who was struggling. He was reaching his limits, and Izuku knew this. Izuku gritted his teeth and dashed off at 100%, and when All For One prepared another attack to keep him away, Izuku kept charging but got in front of the attack and took it straight on without making an air wall to block it. This shocked All For One since he thought Izuku would back away to prepare an air wall to block the attack, but instead he went straight into it. It still blocked the attack, but that meant he took it head on, and those blasts were not weak. As the dust started to settle, Izuku came flying out and landed a punch right into All For One's face, breaking the helmet in one section, which revealed his scarred face. Everyone was shocked. They were shocked at the villain's face. They were shocked at how Izuku got a blow in. They were shocked that it had worked. Izuku jumped up and attempted to land another blow before All For One could recover, but All For One quickly used some other quirks and blasted Izuku away. All Might caught Izuku in the air and saw the damage he received. Overall, he was fine with only some light wounds that wouldn't hinder him. All Might, on the other hand, was aching all around his body. He had quite a few wounds and he was reaching his limits, which wasn't going to be any good at all. "Good job on that blow, my boy," All Might said as he coughed some blood. Izuku frowned a bit but kept his smile. "All Might, you should leave," Izuku said as he caught his breath. All Might shook his head. "No, I'm not leaving you here to fight this monster alone," All Might stated. Izuku was glad he had Gran Torino agreed to his request. Speaking of Gran Torino, Izuku looked over and saw that the League had all been detained and taken off the field. Izuku was glad he didn't need to worry about them anymore. "All Might, quite sad, isn't it, that your master's legacy got tainted, you know?" All For One said. He as well noticed that the League was arrested but had plans to just grab them later. If he won this fight, then he won the war, since he could sense the full power of One For All in Izuku, meaning he didn't transfer it to someone else before coming here. All Might asked what All For One was talking about, and the words spoken hurt him like a knife in the chest. "Shigaraki is Tenko Shimura, the grandson of your master," All For One said, and the smile on All Might's face fell. At that moment they heard a cry from a civilian to their side, and at that moment All For One charged up several blasts and sent them both right after each other, forcing them to block them. One went towards the heroes, which Izuku blocked, and another went to the civilian, which forced All Might to block it. This revealed to the world All Might's first secret, which he tried so hard to keep. The world and Japan were silent. They saw All Might in a skinny form after the dust settled. Endeavor, who had arrived, yelled at him, asking about the pathetic form. All Might tried to stand up but fell back down. The civilian behind him yelled for him not to give up. Everyone started to chant All Might's name. Regardless if he could hear them or not, but he could hear all the people in the surrounding areas as the voices were joining together and vibrating through the air. Some other heroes grabbed the civilians out of the way and retreated so All Might would be fine. All Might tried to buff back up but was having trouble. Having trouble, All Might. Pathetic. All for One said. Izuku charged in and clashed blows with All for One, which gave All Might a moment to breath. Soon the chants changed from All Might to All Might and Fulcrum. The world knew they were master and protege and were chanting for them to win. All Might stood up and waited for the chance to strike. He was planning to throw it all in one blow and go for the United States of Smash. When Izuku forced All for One to turn his back towards All Might as the moment that All Might charged. All for One turned around, but it was too late. A blow landed right on his head and All for One went right into the ground. United States of Smash. All Might yelled out as he had all of the power in one arm. 9. Soon the dust started to settle and everyone held onto their breaths. They wanted to know if the heroes won. Soon the dust settled and there was a large crater with a smaller one in the center where All Might and All for One were at. Izuku was nearby but got forced back a bit due to the wind pressure. 1. Everyone was waiting to see any sign of him having won. They saw All Might raise his hand in the air in a victory pose, however Izuku felt something was off. He charged toward All Might, which everyone noticed and even All Might noticed. Izuku got to him quickly and threw him and everyone was shocked and thought Izuku turned on All Might until it happened. All for One quickly stood up and grabbed Izuku in the throat right where All Might was standing and slammed him to the ground. Everyone was shocked. All Might was horrified. Izuku recovered quickly and kicked All for One in the chest and used the float to get away with some distance between them. Izuku rubbed his throat since it hurt a bit and tested his voice. Nothing seemed damaged since he had 100% of One for All going, so it provided him a good amount of durability and defense. Izuku looked towards Gran Torino and he got the hint. He grabbed All Might and booked it away from the battlefield. All Might was in shock at what Gran Torino was doing. He then had a flashback to his master's death and this was so familiar to it, he called out for his protege. Fulcrum. All Might yelled and everyone was in shock as All Might was removed from the front lines and put near the other heroes who started to look over his wounds. Third POV. All Might was taken off the battlefield by Gran Torino who was keeping him away. Gran Torino, let me go. Let me go. He's can't fight him alone. All Might tried to get up and go to Izuku but Gran Torino overpowered All Might easily. Stop. I promised him I would stop you from doing that. You can't fight anymore, can you? Gran Torino shouted at him. This caused All Might and the others around to widen their eyes. The other heroes were scared. The symbol of peace could no longer fight and the cameras heard that statement. Everyone around the world was in fear. Fulcrum has this, trust him. He is your protege after all, who is as strong as you if not stronger. Gran Torino said and everyone's eyes widened once again. They all turned to where Fulcrum was standing at and slowly people started to chant his name. They were all chanting for Fulcrum to win. All for One just sneered at that chant. 1. They expect you to win but we are more or less equal in power. The only reason All Might got that blow on me all those years ago was due to me lowering my guard after slaughter so many of you users. All for One said. They were too far for the cameras to pick up the talking since they weren't shouting it. Izuku just kept the smile on his face and took up his battle stance. That may be, but at least one of us is dying here. All for One. This war that has gone on for so long will come to an end here and now. No more next generations. No more hiding in the dark. No more, Izuku stated with determination in his voice. Both of them just watched each other as they stood there waiting for either side to move. Everyone went into silence as they also were waiting for movement. Izuku powered up to 100% and blasted off faster than most people could keep up and appeared right behind All for One, who had started to turn around to defend. However, Izuku uses float and rotated himself over All for One and their backs were to each other and Izuku's leg that was in the air above his head came flying down and landed right on All for One's back, sending him flying into a building. Everyone started to cheer for Fulcrum as the battle heated up. 2. Izuku and All for One kept the battle up. Izuku also tried to keep him away from any of the other heroes or civilians. One to ensure he doesn't take their quirks to use them against him, nor for All for One to hold them as a threat against Izuku. All for One though did get some lucky hits in on Izuku, who have been dodging a lot of the attacks due to his floating fighting style. One of the lucky hits had sent Izuku up and into a building where All for One procured to blast the entire building, exploding it. This caused rubble to go flying across the air and had people scrambling to get to cover or dodge them. Izuku came flying out of the destroyed building with some cuts and blood on him, but overall he pushed through the attack. I must admit you lasted longer than anyone in the past. All for One stated. Izuku just smirked and started to talk. Now don't tell me you are getting tired in your old age, All for One. Izuku stated. That annoyed All for One a bit, since he was having to put in a lot of effort to deal with Fulcrum, the current holder of One for All. Those back in the dorms at UA have been watching the entire fight. They had ups and downs the entire fight. They were thrilled and celebrating when All Might had punched and ended the fight until they learned that the fight wasn't over. They were shocked when their senpai threw All Might away and took the blow instead, and now they have been watching fight go on for so long. Some of the students were complaining about why the other heroes weren't getting involved. Aizawa shot that down quickly. Do remember what All for One did to All Might. None of those heroes working together could really touch All Might. What do you think they can do against this villain? If Izuku fails, then Japan will fall into a state of chaos and be engaged in a war of attraction that we will likely lose. That is how dangerous this villain is. The fate of all Japan lays on Izuku's shoulders, and he knows that. Aizawa stated with a serious tone. He hasn't taken his eyes off the screen the entire time the fight started. He was worried. He felt dread in regards to Izuku's last words to him. Don't tell me you are planning to die there, Izuku. Aizawa's thoughts came to a halt when he made the connection. Damn it, Izuku. You were saying your final goodbyes, weren't you? You had planned to die. Aizawa yelled in his mind as tears fell from his face. None of the students made a comment about it. They all knew how attached their teacher was to their senpai. They themselves were all worried about Izuku as well and could only pray for his success. In the Midoriya's home, Inko and the other parents were all on the couch just holding each other. They could only watch the TV as the battle was going on. They thought it was over at one point, but the situation only turned for the worst when Izuku had to fight the villain on his own. The same villain that had just defeated All Might. Inko was holding a picture of Izuku and his two brothers. Tears were slowly going down her face as she just stared at the TV watching, praying. That is the only thing she could do, as she knew her baby was the only thing standing between that villain and all of Japan and maybe the world. Melissa herself was watching the TV, but she was also with Recovery Girl preparing the medical device she created. The device would encase Izuku in a medical liquid that she designed with Recovery Girl that would help speed up the body's healing without using their energy. Recovery Girl was impressed with it and knew that if it worked it would save so many people, since it would decrease the energy used up to heal the body, meaning she could use her quirk to heal more things. This could change the game in life and death. Melissa had also told Recovery Girl why the device was created, which made her work on it far more than other things. Recovery Girl was pissed when she learned of Izuku's plans and would scold him to hell and back when she gets her hand on him. However, they could only prepare the medical device now and not improve it anymore, since there wasn't any more time. They were preparing it for transport to the nearest hospital of the battle site, and Nezu had learned of their intentions and had gotten ectoplasm to help with moving everything with his clones. 1. Now while they were all doing that, Izuku was finding himself in a sticky situation. As the battle kept going, both sides were suffering wounds, but Izuku was getting more than All for One was. All for One though knew he needed to get a new breathing mask on soon, since he was having trouble breathing, but it wouldn't stop him in the long run as long as he could end the legacy of One for All. We've been fighting for nearly an hour now. I think we should start ending this, no? All for One asked, and this caused everyone to tense up since he had made his voice echo for everyone to hear. This was going to be it. Izuku just stood straight and lifted his hand to All for One. Indeed, it is time we end this. As it stands, neither of us will win. We've been holding back on attacks and been trying to find openings to land deceive blows, but that needs to end. Time to go all out, Izuku said as he powered up 100% throughout his body and pushed it a bit more. His eyes glowed a bit and they both blasted off, creating cracks and large craters in the ground when they blasted off towards each other. Both of them collided in the center and their blows created a large shockwave that looked like it was bending space and time, as from others' viewpoints they could see their arms bending when they shouldn't be. Both broke off and slammed with their other fists. The same thing happened and happened again as they just kept landing blow after blow against each other's fists, creating large shockwaves that were shaking the earth and making people hold onto the ground. Everyone watching was shocked at the level of power these two were displaying. It also shocked them that they weren't going all out beforehand, because the damage was spreading as some less than stable buildings fell down due to the vibrations. Izuku dodges under one blow and landed an uppercut on All for One. However, it didn't do as much damage as he hoped. It only destroyed the remaining portion of the breathing mask, but that didn't stop All for One, who recovered within seconds and landed a large blast right on Izuku at point blank. This sent Izuku back into the ground and coughed up blood. Damn it, Izuku thought. This trade of blows and lucky hits continued for another 15 minutes and the world was on edge. Both All for One and Izuku were bloody messes. All Might was panicking at the amount of blood he saw come off Izuku, but he hoped his protege no Sun could push through and end it. However, things turned worse when All for One got pissed with the situation. I must admit, you are the first person to ever drive me to this point. Not even All Might, when he did this to my face in his lucky blow all those years ago, has ever angered me to this point. Congratulations, Fulcrum. You truly have replaced All Might as my most hated person. All for One said as he powered up his quirks. I want to see if you are willing to die for them all. All for One said, and no one liked those words nor liked the black ball mass that appeared above All for One's hand. He lowered his hand in the direction All Might and all of the other heroes were at and started to talk. You have two options. Either block this attack and have a chance at the death, though with your strength I predict at best a lot of wounds that will weaken you, or let the blast go and keep fighting me at full strength, but that means they die since there is no way they will survive it. Make your pick. All for One said as he shot the dark ball. Izuku reacted without even thinking and appeared quickly in front of everyone and crossed his arms and went as far as he could in his power and created a large blast of air, and then before the ball collided he pulled his fist back and did a punch to create Antoer air wave to try and redirect the destruction. Everyone was tense and silent that was watching from their TVs. The people on the ground were silent as well. No one knew what the result was going to be. Soon the dust settled and everyone gasped at what they saw. The land in front of them was carved out and the destruction didn't go behind Izuku but all to the sides. He allowed nothing past him, but at what cost? Izuku was huffing as he tried to breathe in as much air as he could. The front portion of his outfit was gone and he had a large number of wounds and some burns on his body. He didn't have any life-threatening wounds at that moment, but he still had a lot of wounds and was tired. His body was strained and he was exhausted. Izuku groaned as he moved. I have to hand it to you. Didn't even take any time to consider it. You moved without thinking and took the blow to save all the people behind you. By my estimates, that attack would have gone about 5 or so blocks, killing anyone in its path if you didn't stop it. So a good number of civilians, police, and heroes you just saved, but now the question is, can you defeat me in that state? All for One said as he landed on the ground. Everyone was shocked at the words of All for One. If it had gone that many blocks, it would have gone far past the police line, which would have hit very populated areas. Everyone paled at that but had to agree. Could Fulcrum keep fighting when he was the last hope? 2. I am Fulcrum, Izuku said as he got his breathing under control, and everyone was confused. I am Fulcrum from the Three Misfits. Only death shall stop me, so fucking come get some. Izuku yelled as he powered up 100% of One for All and blasted off to All for One, who was shocked by the declaration. Everyone was shocked. They had just learned of one of the members of the Three Misfits. They all remembered how horrible that incident was and felt their hearts swell. This hero they were watching was from a group that stood their ground and fought until death claimed them or they won. Everyone was shouting out Fulcrum's name as Izuku landed a blow on All for One and kept going. All for One was launched back into a building where he just came out of it and tossed the entire thing at Izuku by using a quirk to lift it up and throw it. Izuku just used float and went right around it and went flying towards All for One. They were both in the air enhancing blows as Izuku just kept receiving more and more wounds, but so was All for One. However, All for One had some regeneration quirks that made this a challenge. Enough of this, All for One said as he grabbed Izuku by the head and slammed him down towards the ground, cracking it and breaking it apart. All for One stumbled backward, a bit tired from this fight. 2 hours now. 2 bloody fucking hours. How do you have the strength to keep getting back up? What drives you to keep getting back up when you're so fucking blooded? When you are on the doorstep of death. All for One yelled as he was completely pissed off now. 6. All for One was tired and done with Izuku. He wanted Izuku dead. As Izuku just stood up once again, everyone was in tears at his state. So much blood was covering him, so much blood. All Might himself was breaking down and was in tears. All Might was cursing himself. He regretted never finishing the fight all those years ago and ensuring that All for One had died instead of allowing him to recover over the years. Izuku never allowed the smile to fall from his face. Smile, for I shall make the stand, Izuku said out loud as he just put himself back in a fighting position. You are done. You can barely keep yourself up, Fulcrum. Your legs want to give out. Just admit you have lost and now no one stands in my way of conquering Japan. All for One said with a smirk, since he was assuming he had won due to the state that Izuku was in. All the wounds Izuku received only got worse as they opened up even more from being slammed into the ground. Yay, I'll admit that I can barely stand right now. However, I wouldn't be a misfit member if I didn't have an ace of my sleeve. Izuku taunted. Everyone was confused about what his ace was. He could barely stand. Even if they wanted him to win, how could he? Heroes always find a way. Even against all odds, we heroes will find a way. All for One. Here's the thing though, I knew my odds of walking away from this fight alive was low before I even got here. So I allowed myself to accept death so it wouldn't be hard to do this next move. Quote, Izuku said. At that, Gran Torino knew what was about to happen and he screamed for everyone to fall back. Fall back, or we will get caught in the destruction. Fall back now, he yelled as he grabbed All Might and flew away. All Might tried to protest and wanted to go back, but Gran Torino's next words were like a stab in the heart. It's too late. Izuku is about to kill himself and take All for One with him. Gran Torino stated. Everyone was confused but did as he yelled. All for One was confused as he saw everyone running, then he felt it. A large amount of power. The helicopters stayed close but slowly moved away. Then everyone saw it on all of the TVs. Izuku then quickly appeared as if he teleported right behind All for One. That is how powerful he was, and his power was only growing. Izuku grabbed onto All for One and held his arms and body in a tight hold. Izuku wrapped his legs around All for One's legs and used one to kick off from the ground, sending them flying into the air. The cameras followed as best as they could, but they all could see it. So much power was radiating off Izuku as All for One screamed for him to let go. Let go of me now. Let go, he yelled as he tried to injure Izuku enough to force him off, but no matter the wounds he put on, Izuku wouldn't let go. Izuku just held onto All for One and kept holding him as he went higher and higher in the air with float. He could feel the power increase and increase inside of him, wanting to rip him apart and burst out. Got to hold it, Izuku thought. Higher, higher, as far as I can go. We shall die together, All for One. Izuku yelled as they were getting closer and closer to the stratosphere, where it started to get cold and nearly hard to breathe. They were likely halfway through the stratosphere when he felt it. He felt the entire pool activate and he knew that was it. This was as far as he goes because the power was coming out right then and there. As such, he felt power through his entire voice as he called out his last attack, with All for One struggling to break free. 7. Everyone on the ground and around the world was watching the TV. They all saw Izuku go into the air, but nothing happened. They were all confused about where he and the villain were, but those on site could feel the energy, and that is when they all heard it. Final smash was yelled out, and then seconds later they saw it. The entire clouds were all pushed away and it revealed what happened. They thought a nuke or something went off when the flash of light happened, but as their visions cleared from the blinding light they saw what was left. 3. It looked like a miniature sun. Everyone was shocked. It was like a ball of fire and the energy of fire was going off it. There was so much energy going off of the ball of flames and they all wondered. What happened to the hero and villain? All Might though was sitting on his knees in horror. What move was that? He asked no one in particular since no one knew. Yet someone did know and answered. It's called the final smash or whatever he called it. It's his forbidden move as it uses all of the pool of energy he has and released it, destroying anything and everything around. That includes himself. I'm sorry, Gran Torino said. All Might looked at him and asked if he knew of this and when. I found out when we were heading to this battle from the other location. He made me promise to get you out of the way when the time came for him to use it. Gran Torino said as he looked at All Might, whose face was one of despair. Third POV 1. Everyone was silent. The cameras had captured what Gran Torino said to All Might and everyone was devastated. Their hero had just destroyed himself to ensure their safety. The people back in the dorms all fell to their knees and were crying. Aizawa himself broke down as he fell down and just broke. He now had to bury the third member of the Misfits and he hated that. He hated that no one from his third year survived. He hated that he couldn't teach them better. That he couldn't teach them some move or skills to help him survive. Bakugo himself was just blank. He didn't speak. He didn't cry. He did nothing because he didn't know how to react. He didn't know what to do. He just sat there without moving until Kirishima knocked him out of his thoughts and he turned around to him. Then he broke down as tears just went down his face and Kirishima just pulled him into a hug. The rest of those close to Izuku wasn't doing any better. They all broke down and so did the rest of the UA staff. Nezu had dropped his teacup that he was using to calm himself. He sat down and looked at a photo on his desk. It was a photo of the three misfits right after their provisional exams. He just lowered his head and knew he could never make this up. UA and the world owed Izuku Midoriya aka Fulcrum so much and they would never get to repay him. Back on site of the battle, the ball of fire started to shrink and one object came falling out of it. Gran Torino saw this and blasted off into the air. Catch him. That should be Izuku. His body survived so he might be alive. Gran Torino yelled. Anyone and everyone that had a quirk that could be effective in trying to slow his approach and catching him got to moving. The body was coming towards them but at a high speed. Gran Torino couldn't fly high enough to get up to him and had to wait for him to come closer before trying to grab the body. Then it happened. Hawks, the current number 3 hero, came flying in past Gran Torino and used his feathers to grab the body and slow its descent and change it towards them more. Within a minute or so they had secured the body and confirmed it was one Izuku Midoriya. They went down to the ground and landed. Gran Torino reached down to touch his throat and check for a pulse. As he did this, All Might was running over but everyone had stilled and were holding their breath. As Gran Torino held his hand there for a few moments hoping for a pulse, he found none. He pulled his hand back and shook his head. Everyone's fears were confirmed. Though they didn't know powerful forces were at work. Those powerful forces were one for all itself. As all of that was going on, Izuku's eyes opened up and he found himself in a dark void. I died, didn't I? My body is missing all the wounds. Izuku muttered. Then he looked around and saw them. He saw his brothers. He got up to his feet but it was a bit hard to do since he felt so tired. He then started to walk towards them until he was able to break into a run. Brothers, he said as he let tears go down his face. Both of them smirked at Izuku. We said to die in a blaze of glory or at an old age but we didn't mean this soon, bro. Kenneth stated as he hugged Izuku followed by Hot Eye hugging Izuku. Izuku just laughed a bit but they smacked him on the head. Hey, why are you smacking me? Izuku pouted a bit. They just rolled their eyes. So no regrets? Hot Eye asked him. Izuku froze. He had regrets. Who wouldn't have some? Izuku's silence answered their question. I saw that cute girl you got together with. Melissa, right? Then you left class 1A behind and everything. Are you sure you want to end it like this? They asked. Izuku was confused. How could he undo any of this? He was dead. They chuckled and then he heard a voice from behind him. Hello, Ninth, said the voice and Izuku turned around and saw the first user and all of the other users. Their side of the void was showing the inside of One for All. All of the destroyed buildings and everything. Izuku never liked the looks of it but figured it was from when One for All first started. Izuku greeted the users and wondered why they were all here since his brothers weren't in One for All. The first user laughed a bit but answered the question. We're in between life and death. They represent death and we represent life. The choice is yours. Go with your brothers in One for All and your life comes to an end and you are allowed to rest in peace, or come with us and we restart your body and give you the chance at living again. Though there isn't a guarantee on you surviving 100%. Your body is damaged and it will take you some time to recover fully and you might have lost portions of your body. I don't know since I can't see anything after the final attack. So you might just end up dying anyway, but the chance exists and it's yours to choose on what to do, stated the first user. Izuku was shocked. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to reunite with his brothers. However, everyone back home. 2. I don't know what to do. I'm torn between the two picks. Izuku said. Everyone wore a sad smile at that statement. Who wouldn't be torn between reuniting with his brothers or going back to those that are living? Though the decision seemed to be made for Izuku as his brothers threw him to the One for All users. Izuku was shocked and looked back at his brothers. We will be waiting for you regardless, so go see if you can return. We want to see more action, stated Hot-Eye. Izuku just laughed after a few seconds and knew that was his brother without a doubt. Always wanting to see the action, Izuku got up and looked at them and a few tears went down his face. I really want to go with you, but you're right. More people to protect after all, and I will come back here sooner or later. Hopefully the latter, Izuku said as he waved at them goodbye as they disappeared. Let's restart your body, stated the first user as all the users turned into lighting and went straight into Izuku's body. As this conversation happened, only seconds passed in the real world. 5. As Gran Torino shook his head as he pulled away from Izuku. Everyone was shocked and broke down. All Might had fallen to his knees in front of Izuku and was crying. Everyone was crying regardless of who they were. Suddenly the remaining fireball sent a shockwave out which made everyone look up at it. That is when they saw 9 different colors of lighting come off of it, which confused everyone but those that knew about the 9 individual users. Though even they were shocked at what was happening. Then the lighting came straight down at the body, forcing the heroes away from Izuku's body. Everyone was shocked at what was happening, but soon the lighting died down and they looked back at his body and saw his chest rising up and down. Everyone was stunned until Hawks broke out of it and grabbed his body and took off towards the hospital. This snapped everyone out of their shock and Gran Torino yelled for people to alert the hospital for them to be ready. 1. Luckily Recovery Girl and Melissa were on site already and had the medical device ready in a surgery room. They saw on the TV what happened and alerted the staff to get ready to bring him into the room to be put in the medical device. This device might be the only thing that can keep him alive. His body will be on the step of death even when he gets here. Be ready for anything and everything to go wrong. Recovery Girl yelled as the staff ran around getting ready. All Might and Gran Torino both go moving towards the hospital. Everyone saw that the fireball had disappeared and nothing else came out of it either. Everyone came to the final conclusion that All for One had been destroyed. Everyone was just now worried about Fulcrum and his condition. 12. Within a minute Hawks arrived at the hospital and had transported him into the room with his feathers to not take any unneeded dirt and germs into the room. Hawks just stayed outside and sat down in a chair. He had arrived near the end of the battle since he had come from a long distance since he was on a case. The commission told him not to, but he didn't care. They also can't do anything to him since he saved the boy from falling and took him to the hospital. If they did try, he would blast them publicly, which wouldn't go well for them with how loved the boy is. Hawks smirked and knew he had some cover from the commission for a while and he would enjoy his freedom. 1. Soon All Might and Gran Torino arrived at the hospital and looked at him. He just pointed at the door and they looked in and saw Izuku being worked on in some strange device. Melissa was also in the room, which confused them as she was helping operate the device. They could only sit down and wait is what they did. After about 40 minutes the entire 1A class, Aizawa, Nezu, Inko, and the brothers' parents all arrived on site. They were all waiting for an answer and so was the entire world. There was a massive amount of media representatives outside the building and even a lot from the international community since the battle was watched across the world. It was about another hour later that Melissa walked out carrying some bag. They all looked at her and wanted some answer. Recovery Girl came out as well and she was covered in blood. They didn't like the look on her face. Bad news, worse news, or the worst news? She asked and they asked if there was any good news. Sorry everyone, but no. As it stands, he's in a coma. He's alive, so that is good, but his body is so damaged that I don't know if he is going to live. It's all up to him right now. We have him in the medical device that Melissa created for this event, which is slowly healing him, which saves energy for me to use my quirk. So when I will heal him, and the medical device will slowly heal him as he stays in the liquid, and we create more liquid to replace it. So Nezu, I need you to get the power loader working on the medical liquid with me so we can create. Actually, Yaoyorozu, Recovery Girl said, and then yelled for the girl, who stood up quickly. Congratulations, you just became a living medical lab. I'm going to provide you the formula for the medical liquid and provide you a place to put it all. You don't stop until you drop. We need as much as we can get since it's one of the few things keeping him alive. Recovery Girl said, and then she told Nezu to ensure that girl had enough food and liquid to keep going until they had enough liquid stored. Nezu nodded his head and started making plans. Yaoyorozu started reading the formula that Melissa gave her and started to study it. She would create test samples that they would look at to ensure she got it right before mass producing it. 8. Then they all asked her how Melissa knew about this event. Melissa sighed a bit before talking. He knew he would likely use that move for some time. Since before he came to Island. I think he said before the Hosu incident. As such, the moment he told me at Island, I got to work on plans for the device. Melissa stated. All Might then spoke up. Did anyone else know about this beforehand, or was I the only one left in the dark about my own protege? ? Quote. He stated. Everyone shook their heads, so he was kind of glad that others didn't know either. Melissa then opened her bag and pulled out devices. He made these. He told me to give them if it didn't look like he was going to survive, and this qualifies for this, Melissa said as she gave them all out. Some of your devices have some secret and personal things, so you might want to look at them in private first before letting others see them, if at all, Melissa said as she handed them all out. Each person there had received one. This broke everyone's hearts. She then pulled out one more that was a general one for 1A that anyone could see. This one is a general message from Izuku to 1A which you can all see. She said as she pressed play. Then a projection appeared as she sat down on the table in the center. No matter which side you looked from, it appeared straight for you so everyone could see it without a problem. Hello. Is this on? Ah. It's on. Good. Well, if you are seeing this, it means I'm dead likely or near it. Sorry. I guess that is a horrible way for me to start this. Izuku said in the recording as he rubbed his neck. Many thoughts are going in my mind, and most of them I will say in the personal recordings. However, I need to say this to everyone. Smile. Keep smiling when you are afraid. Smile when you are facing a challenge you are struggling against. The smile helps hide the fear and reassures those around you. Izuku said with a bright smile. He then relaxed. I've enjoyed my time with you all, but sometimes fate just throws you a curveball. I promised you 1A that I would stop the threat against you guys, and I likely doing so. You didn't need to suffer, my brothers or my fates. I wanted you guys to enjoy your first year, and you can't do that with the mastermind of the league always lurking. So I'm going to do everything and anything to stop him. I just have a request for you guys. Can you guys take care of the memorial for me while you all attend UA? I asked Nezu in his personal message to take care of it after all of you graduate. I just don't want it to be dirty, though I don't expect you all to keep it as clean as I did, since I cleaned it every single day. Izuku said with a small smile on his face, and you could hear everyone just saying they would. I'm sorry that I won't be able to be there for you guys anymore. I knew for some time that this would likely be my fate. But I am so tired, and I don't know if I will have the strength to push forward to survive, but maybe I will. We can only wait and see. I can't wait to see how you all do regardless in the future. Izuku said as the video cut off. Everyone was in tears at this point. They all soon separated into some private rooms and watched the videos. Most of them gave general encouragement and some personal advice for their hero careers, while some were more perfect. Nezu's. Hey, Nezu-sensei. Wow. It's been a while since I've called you that. I just wanted to say thank you for everything you have done for me and my brothers. I know you will be putting me on the memorial with my brothers, but I asked 1A in their main video to clean it if they would during their time at UA. Could you just make sure it gets done and take care of it in the area around it once they leave? If you would, that would be amazing. You could also make it some sort of special tasks for the first years so they learn some history and some basic community service. Though that's up to you. I just enjoyed how All Might had me start with community service projects to do my training, and I found it amazing to make my roots in that. Anyway, Nezu-sensei, thank you. Thank you for being an amazing person and watching after me during all of this. I know you hate most humans, but I also know you love humans as well. You love the children that are still innocent and can be changed to be better. Please never let your hatred consume you fully. I hope you live a long life and continue to make an impact in our world. Izuku said before the video turned into images of Izuku and Nezu with Izuku's brothers. Nezu would deny any claims of tears rolling down his fur. Him crying. Impossible. Though he was sure to download a copy of the video to his phone before putting the projector in his pocket. 14. Gran Torino. Old man. It's been a while. Ahaha. I wouldn't dare call you old man in a range of you being able to hit me, but you can't hit me since, well, you know. Anyway, I know you're getting up there in age, and also clean your ears out, you senile man. Thank you. Thank you for your help during all of this. Though I need to ask, please help my master out. I'm sure this will hit him hard. Him losing 7th and now me. Yay. I'm scared of what he might do, so please watch over him. I don't need to see him on my side too soon. Izuku said with a sad smile. Gran Torino just shook his head. Damn kid. You aren't dead yet, so don't go asking that of me. Gran Torino thought. Izuku then thanked Gran Torino a bit more before the video ended and showed images of them training at the warehouse. 1. Aizawa. I know what you are likely thinking. Why did this have to happen? I know, but I need you to listen to me, sensei. Don't blame yourself. I never blamed you for my brother's deaths, nor should you. Nor should you blame yourself here either. I need you to look and see that all of Class 1A is here and alive. That is the most important thing. If everything went as I hoped, then all for one went to the grave with me. I'm hoping the League was captured as well, but he's the main threat that needs to be stopped. Izuku said with a determined look on his face. I promised them that I would keep them safe from the League, and removing him will ensure their safety overall, since others can't deal with him. Just, please keep pushing forward and don't hold yourself responsible for my death. Izuku said with some tears going down his face. Thank you for being the teacher of us misfits. Izuku said as he put on a bright smile, and the video changed to images of Izuku and him and then Aizawa and the misfits when they were still alive. All Might. So, I'm sure you're angry with me. You will have the right to be with what I planned. I can only say I'm sorry. When the first user came to me in a dream before Hosu, he gave me the warning of my likely death. He gave me the last smash attack to use in the event of the battle going south. I promise you I wasn't going in there with the plan to use it and doing nothing else. I went in that battle doing my best, but I knew I had that attack to fall back on. I knew though deep down that I likely wouldn't walk away alive. I need you to know I don't regret using it. I don't regret going into that battle. I need you to know that it isn't your fault. It isn't in any way anyone's fault but all for one, and if everything went as I hoped, he died with me on that battlefield if I had to resort to it. Sorry though that I had to take one for all with me, since I needed the entire pool of energy to ensure his death. Izuku said, and then he went on to explain how one for all likely would have weakened for a period of time due to the singularity threshold. Dad, I hope you are proud of me. I am so glad that you saw me as your son. I'm sorry that we couldn't spend more time together. I love you, Dad. Izuku stated as the video cut off and pictures of all their time together were projected. All Might broke down in tears at all of the images. My boy, why didn't you tell me beforehand? We could have tried some plan or something before you resorted to that. All Might thought as he just sat there crying. Soon everyone returned to the lobby and sat down together. Inko and the parents had listened to them together and soon came back as well. The only thing they could do is wait. Third Pav. It was an entire week later before Izuku showed any signs of waking up. He started to move a lot more often, and the medical liquid was replaced at the start of each day and after dinner each night to ensure he was getting the best results from the medical liquid. They wanted his body to heal as much as it could, in addition to Recovery Girl using her quirk on Izuku. Recovery Girl announced that at the rate it was going they should see him awake by the end of the following week, and as it appears there will be no lasting damage due to the medical liquid healing his body in a combination with her quirk. Overall, the medical liquid is seeping in every fiber of his body and it's healing anything and everything. What we need to be concerned about is the strength he will have when he wakes up. I'm afraid that he might have destroyed his quirk and sapped away at his natural body strength. We can only know once he wakes up and tries to move. Recovery Girl said one day. The media was informed of Izuku's recovery and the expected date that he would awake. Everyone was on hold to see if he would wake up. They have already dubbed him as the next symbol of peace. The hero of courage, Fulcrum. All might even provide a statement that his protege was a strong individual and wouldn't be surprised to see him up and back at hero work the moment the doctors cleared him. Endeavor tried to position himself as the next #1 hero, but that was quickly shut down by the public calling him out on his disgusting priorities. The backlash was quick and decisive. It was projected that Endeavor would likely fall from his #2 hero rank and Hawks would go up to that spot. It was also projected that if Izuku could return to hero duty that he would be announced as the #1 hero due to the events and him being called the next symbol of peace. Class 1A and especially Todoroki found it funny that Endeavor got hit like that. Todoroki was hoping that Endeavor did indeed fall from the ranks and that Fulcrum replaced the #1 spot. Though they just wanted him to wake up first before anything else happened. They wanted their senpai back. Soon the next week arrived and went. Izuku didn't wake up. Everyone's spirits dropped at that. They all went home and decided to wait. Though after they all left they missed it. Izuku Midoriya woke up and lifted himself out of the medical liquid. Guess Melissa really did finish this, Izuku said as he groaned. His body was really sore. God, my body feels horrible. Going to take a lot of training to recover my strength. Izuku thought. He activated One for All and helped himself out of the tube and to stand. Power. It's weaker. It feels like I lost about a quarter of the power. Izuku thought. He rolled his eyes at the power that was lost and sat down in the chair next to the tube. He kept the monitors on him so it didn't alert anyone. So, 25% power gone. That would put me near where All Might received One for All from the 7th user. That isn't horrible. It means in my prime I will be more or less the same strength as he was, but I might be able to push it past his prime power likely since the internal space is there to be filled in. The power was just lost due to everything that happened. Izuku thought. He decided to be a prick though as he got a fun idea. Well, fun to him. He decided to rip off all the monitors from his chest that triggered the alarms to go off. Izuku just smirked and watched the door. Wait, if Recovery Girl is here she is going to hit me with the cane. Oh, God, Izuku thought as you know it. Recovery Girl came rushing into the room. He looked at her and she looked at him. She came over and just hugged him. No cane, he asked surprised, and then she hit him with the cane. Ouch, don't hit the formerly dead, Izuku said as a joke. Then he noticed tears rolling down her face. I'm sorry, don't cry, I won't make tasteless jokes anymore, Izuku said as he waved his hands in front of him. She just shook her head and then started to speak. You idiot, you've been in a coma for 2 weeks. You were lucky your girlfriend created this medical bath or you would be dead right now. Do you understand me? Recovery Girl stated. Izuku just nodded his head fastly. She closed the door and asked him some questions. How are your strength and do you still have your quirk? I had a fear of you destroying it due to that attack. Also, if you didn't notice, your body is littered with small scars from the last attack. She stated. Izuku looked down at his body and saw the sheer number of scars across his body. Damn, he thought. He did trigger One for All though, and she nodded her head. I still got it, but I did receive backlash in regards to it. I lost power. I lost about 25% of the power and I'm about as strong as All Might at his start. I should be able to recover the entire 25% and go beyond that to what my beyond should have been, but I won't know until I try. Regardless, I doubt I will find a villain that requires that much power to fight again, and everyone else I usually only use around a max of 40%. Izuku stated. She was shocked to hear that but nodded her head regardless. From what I can see without doing X-rays, your body should be fine. You just need to do physical therapy due to being out for several weeks and then some physical training to get used to moving around, but otherwise, I can clear you for hero work in maybe a month. Recovery Girl stated. Izuku nodded his head. Izuku then got an idea. Hey, want to help me on a horrible prank? He asked her and she raised an eyebrow. I'm doubtful I'm going to like this, but I'll humor you, she said. He then explained what he wanted to do and she smiled and shook her head and warned him that he's going to get hit for it, but he shrugged. 5. That is how everyone found themselves at the hospital. Recovery Girl told everyone to return to the hospital and that she needed to speak to everyone. Within an hour everyone was in the private waiting room connected to Izuku's room. She exited his room and entered the private room to find everyone present. They all looked tense since she didn't say what it was about. Recovery Girl did something changes in Izuku's state? Nezu asked. They all nodded their heads wanting to know. God, this boy is going to get hit a lot, she thought, but went with it. She started talking and said what she agreed to say. As of 3:45 p.m., Izuku Midoriya aka Fulcrum monitors alerted us to a change in his condition. We entered the room and discovered that at 3:50 p.m. Izuku Midoriya had passed away due to the failure of his heart and we were unable to bring him back. As such, at 4 p.m. we called his death. I am sorry, Recovery Girl stated. Everyone was silent and soon broke down into tears. After a few moments, they heard laughter from behind them and they all turned around with glares but were shocked to see who they saw. Boo, Izuku said, and some idiots like Kaminari shouted about a ghost, but Jiro just hit him and said he had a heartbeat. 7. Explain, Aizawa said as he glared between Izuku and Recovery Girl. Surprise, Izuku said, and then he got slapped across the face by Melissa. Ouch, Izuku said as he rubbed his face but then was hugged by Melissa. She broke down in tears as Yojiku just rubbed her back. Everyone soon started shouting about what was going on. I told you that you would get slapped for this stupid joke, boy. Recovery Girl stated. Yay, I know, I still wanted to do it since I doubt I get a chance to ever do it again. Izuku said as he had gotten slapped by his mother and other parents and All Might was glaring at him. So, Dad, hi. Izuku said as Melissa had gotten off him. All Might walked up to him and punched Izuku in the face. Everyone was shocked and even Izuku was shocked. Gran Torino kind of saw that coming. How dare you not tell me? You should have fucking told me and we could have tried to come up with some plan instead of you going into that planning on using that move if things turned south. Do you fucking understand me? Do you fucking understand how it felt to relive the same damn memory of Gran Torino pulling me away from the battlefield as I had to watch someone I love go to their deaths at the hands of that man? Do you understand, my son? All Might said as he was yelling but broke down at the end and was just sobbing. Izuku's eyes widened and got up and hugged All Might. I'm sorry, I didn't want you coming up with some plan that involved you dying instead. I just didn't want to lose you and I couldn't see any other way. I'm sorry, Dad. Please don't be mad, please forgive me. Izuku said. All Might hugged him and pulled them down onto the couch next to them. Idiot son of mine. Never do this again, do you understand me? Also, of course, I forgive you. All Might stated. They just sat there hugging for a while and Izuku talked to everyone as they sat there. 3. Could I have the class go out for a while and go out to the lobby nearby? I need to talk to the others privately for a bit, Izuku said. Soon Class 1A left the room and only those that knew about One for All were left. So to recap on my current state and One for All, Recovery Girl said I can go back to hero work in about a month. I need to do some physical therapy and some training, but I will be good to go. There were lasting effects though from everything, Izuku said, and that made everyone tense as Recovery Girl hasn't said anything even though she was in the room. First, I'm more or less a painting of scars now, Izuku said as he lifted his shirt off and Melissa just moved her hand across the scars. Though everyone just said that wasn't a real issue since it's better than being dead. Melissa also called them hot, which made Izuku blush and flick her nose. Outside of that, One for All has taken a hit. It's weakened to the levels of when All Might got it from the 7th user. I can feel the gap in power from what I used to have and what is missing now from the pool of energy. Though from what I think, I should be able to recover all of the power gaps as I expand One for All and likely push further as I would have. Izuku stated, and everyone was surprised at what they heard. They asked why it dropped and he explained that some of the power was lost due to the final attack since it was literally expelling energy from his body. The 25% is unknown where it was lost, but it was likely just lost in the air or something, but he didn't care since no villains would likely require that much power to be used. I'm still able to easily take almost anyone. Even Endeavor would have nothing on me with the amount of power I have. Izuku said, and All Might nodded. He remembered his days in UA and Endeavor could never catch up to him and always was chasing behind him. Izuku did learn of what Endeavor tried to do and Izuku just laughed. I guess you should release the news, Nezu, so the public can feel reassured about my return. I'm really hoping Endeavor rank tanks now. Izuku said with a bright smile. Izuku, you seem much happier than before. Why? Inko asked, and Izuku tensed for a second before speaking. I saw them. The users, but I also saw them. I saw my brothers. It was nice talking and hugging them again. They kicked my ass back to the living and told me to come back. It was so unfair. They are using me as entertainment. How did I get degraded to such a job? Izuku pouted. They all chuckled at him and soon the Class 1A was called back in. They all sat down and talked for quite a while. Izuku had thanked Yaoyorozu for being the medical factory that helped keep him alive. She just nodded her head and said it was no problem. Bakugo though spoke up. 1. You really wanted to ask us to clean the memorial. Was that your favor you wanted to ask me that one time? He asked. Izuku nodded his head. Yes, you would have been cleaning my memorial as well since that memorial has a spot left blank for me to be put on it when I die. The actual grave for my brothers is a bit far, but I will be buried with them, but the memorial is easy to get to at UA. Izuku said. They nodded their heads and said they would clean it even though he is still alive. Izuku thanked them and told them he cleaned it every day though, so he doubted that they would be willing to do that. Hiroshima just spoke up and said it was mainly of them to do it and it was a way to give back to the community or well UA itself. Nezu then spoke up about the idea that Izuku had suggested in his message to Nezu. Izuku, I think I will take your request of making it a tradition or something like that for the first years to always clean it. It would be a good history lesson as well, and we will likely set up some community projects. I know you did clean that beach for your physical training before UA, and that might be some good ideas for our first years. They could spend some gym periods or something cleaning a local area up. Nezu stated, and the students of 1A volunteered their class to start the project up as a tradition. Though Mineta complained but was told to shut up because he was a minority opinion in the class. Izuku just chucked at the class and thanked them. 7. Soon the announcement from UA in joint of the hospital was made outside of the hospital. There was still a large number of media present and they all noticed that everyone had returned after leaving, so they suspected something happened. The news broke and spread like wildfire. There were many media headlines, but some read things like, Symbol of Courage awakes and cleared for duty in 1 month. The fall of peace and rise of courage. Villains beware, Fulcrum is here. And many other things. They had also made his statement from the fight with All for One as a tagline for him. The tagline was, Smile for I shall make the stand. And Izuku couldn't find it in himself to reject it. It paid homage to his brothers and marked a turn in the hero world from the I am here with All Might to making a stand with Izuku, since there would be a wave in villain uprising for a while which he will be making a stand against. 3rd POV. 7. The month period passed quite quickly and Izuku had finished the physical therapy that he was required to do for Recovery Girl to sign off on him returning to hero work. The public was overjoyed at hearing that, and Izuku had made sure to make several public appearances to show that he was truly back on the job. Endeavor was furious. Izuku remembered that one of the first appearances that he did when he returned, he had actually defeated a villain that Endeavor was going after. Izuku quickly finished the villain up within seconds when Endeavor had been chancing the guy for several blocks. The look of anger on the face of the man was ridiculous. Izuku had honestly not meant to do it like that, but who was he to complain at rubbing it in that man's face? The second semester for UA had also started, and this was the last semester that Izuku would be sticking around UA for more or less full-time. All Might and Izuku had announced that Izuku was taking over Might Tower as the owner and it would continue normal operations. This reassured people greatly at that fact. Izuku announced that he would be doing what his mentor did and be moving to different cities throughout Japan on a constant basis starting the end of the school year, since he was going to finish out the year with the first years, since he had already agreed to that beforehand. Overall, the public faith in the heroes had been restored since UA and the police had quickly hit the league and captured them all. They were saddened at the loss of the symbol of peace All Might, but they were thrilled with what they gained. They gained the hero of courage, Fulcrum, instead. This was the era of standing up and making a stand at the villains that dared to harm people, and it seemed that 1A of UA was accepting that in full-blown support. The students of 1A had asked Izuku to increase their training and difficulty to make sure they were ready. They were also informed that they would be doing their provisional exams to see if they could gain their provisional licenses. The goal of doing this was in fear of the League of Villains, and if they kept attacking. Even though that threat is gone, there are villains on the rise with the fall of All Might who want to test their mantle against the new symbol, so UA wants to ensure that their students could defend themselves. Izuku was also interested in maybe taking a few of them on as provisional heroes, and he was interested in a few of them but would wait to see if they passed their exams. Soon the provisional license exam came and went. It didn't go well for two of the students. They had both failed with missing 1 point each. These two were of course Todoroki and Bakugo. Izuku just shook his head, but he knew they could do the makeup exam during the semester and would be granted their licenses if they passed that. So Izuku decided to give them some motivation. He called them both into the staff room one day and they sat down at his desk looking down in shame. They had figured he was going to talk to them about their exam, and they were somewhat right. "Do you two know why I called you here?" Izuku asked, and they nodded their heads and said it was about them failing the exam. The boys wouldn't easily admit it, but they both looked up to Izuku a lot. Almost just as much as they currently look up to the legacy of All Might. Izuku was their generation symbol, and they knew it would be a challenge to overcome him if ever, which made it so thrilling to aim for. "You are half right. It's about the exam, but more so the makeup exam. I want to give you both some motivation to doing good at it and passing to obtain your provisional licenses. Want to take a guess at what it is?" Izuku asked, and they were both confused. They had planned to pass no matter what, but now they were interested in what he would offer. "You would be able to refuse, but I'm offering a work-study under me via Might Towers," Izuku said with a smile. Both boys' eyes widened at that statement. "I am interested in taking you both on as work-studies. I do admit I don't have the years and years of experience like Endeavor does or other people in the top 10, which I'm sure I likely will end up in when they announce the ranking at the end of this month, but I still think I have some things to offer. I'd be more focused on battle tactics and actual work experience than other things, if that is interesting to you," Izuku said. Both boys just stood up quickly and bowed their heads and accepted the invitation and said they would pass the makeup exam without fail. Izuku smiled and said he looked forward to it. Soon both boys left and Izuku was sure they were going to go start training. Aizawa, who was sleeping on the floor, just rolled his eyes and stood up. "You really are going to take them both on?" Aizawa asked, and Izuku said he would. "Overall, there are others in the class that interest me, but both of them would likely fit me more. I'm more about quickly moving and overwhelming power. I have nothing against heroes like you or Shinso. But I don't think I could teach Shinso, even though I would like to take him on. What he needs to know is stuff I can easily teach, since it's not my main focus like you, since I only do underground missions every once in a while when I need it for my cases," Izuku said, and Aizawa nodded his head in understanding. They talked a bit more and Izuku explained some things he wanted to focus on with the two boys. For Todoroki, Izuku wanted him to get better at his fireside and finding different ways to use it while being safe and keeping damage down, unlike his father. "I kind of want to turn him into like a completely different version of his father, where he cares about people and doing less property. AKA a actually decent hero, unlike Endeavor who kills and destroys without a care," Izuku said while rolling his eyes, and Aizawa just snorted. It's become clear to UA that Izuku didn't like Endeavor, who Izuku was just ignoring even when the hero tried to talk to Izuku. 3. For Bakugo, Izuku wanted to work on tampering out his attitude a bit more, but overall he was going to be focused on more controlled explosives and aiming to teach him how to fly better with them. I'm interested in seeing if we could create some different explosive attacks, or if he could sustain a constant explosive to keep him flying fast instead of the smaller explosives to keep himself in the air. Though, Bakugo training will be focused more on controlled explosives to do more damage but not lethal damage that a large explosive would do. Izuku said. Aizawa nodded his head and shuddered at Bakugo getting more controlled explosives. They talked a bit more before going their separate ways. Soon though the semester passed and the two boys did obtain their provisional license and the new hero rankings were announced. It went more or less as everyone thought. Izuku was in the top 10, but more importantly, he had taken the position of number 1 hero. Everyone was celebrating that when he was called out to the stage at the ranking announcement. They did also notice that Endeavor had fallen greatly from grace. He had fallen so low that he was at the bottom of the top 10. He was ranked 10th. That is how far he fell due to everyone's disdain of him after what he tried to pull after the giant battle. No one liked how he tried to take the position of the new symbol of peace while Izuku was in a coma after almost dying to protect everyone. You could tell when he was called to the stage for his rank spot that he was pissed. When Izuku was called out, he was glaring at Izuku, and Izuku felt as if he had a laser quirk. Izuku would have died due to how intense the glare was. Izuku just chuckled to himself as he gave Endeavor a side glance which only served to piss him off more. The rank number 2 hero was Hawks. Izuku had leaned over to him and thanked him for getting him to a hospital so quickly and for catching him out of the air. Izuku also whispered to Hawks that he was willing to help him break free from the commission if he wanted to. Hawk's eyes widened slightly, but he looked at Izuku, who was just smiling but had eyes of confidence. Remember, I got Nezu on my side and he and me combined are quite scary. The commission can't do anything to us without risking their position and getting overthrown. Izuku muttered near him so no one else heard. Hawks kept his smile on, but Izuku could tell it was more real than the fake one. Izuku knew fake ones quite well after all. Hawks leaned over and thanked him and said he would love to break free. They agreed to talk more after the event, but would need to make some good plans before they took any actions to ensure the commission's hands were tied. 5. Soon the speeches started and Endeavor's was, well, like he was a bastard of a speech, as he stated that he would return to his rightful position and that children such as Fulcrum and Hawks had no experience to uphold society. Izuku just rolled his eyes, and Hawks' liking of Endeavor kept getting smaller and smaller as time passed. Soon it was time for Hawk's speech, and he talked about how the future was going to be bright under the guidance of heroes like himself or Fulcrum. Everyone was clapping at his speech and was giving a round of shouts and calls of their names. Now it was time for Izuku to give his speech as the new number 1 hero. Fulcrum, would you be willing to give a speech as the new number 1 hero? Asked the announcer, and Izuku took the mic and was silent for a second. Everyone was silent and waiting for what he would say. I never thought I would be standing here so soon. It feels like yesterday when I was with my 2 brothers in All But Blood from the Misfits group. We were going about our training and our patrols like normal. It wasn't until that fateful day that we came face to face with the reality, the harsh reality of what it truly meant to be a hero. Up to that point, we knew. We knew what it meant to be heroes, but we didn't know. We didn't experience it. We were told that it wasn't a game, and it never was to us. We enjoyed reassuring people we saved and making their day bright again, but on that fateful day when the city fell due to a villain, we went into overdrive. We never went through something like that. Of course, we train for it, but the real deal is far different from training. We would find ourselves standing our ground in front of an army of villains. The only thing between them and the civilians was us. We would go on to fight for hours on end and refuse to give up. The end result, I'm sure you all know of it. My brothers died that day, but none of the civilians behind us were touched at all. We made a promise to each other that we would make our stand. That regardless of the odds, that we would not let them come to harm, and we carried that out as my brothers gave their lives, and I was on death's door as I carried them and led the civilians out of the danger zone. Now you are wondering why I am talking about this. Well, it's simple. We delude our citizens through the media and all these movies, cartoons, and merchandise that the hero field is all glamorous. I admit some people go in it for the money instead of wanting to save people. Nothing can be perfect, but I told this story to make it clear. I'm not here to make this field look better. I'm here to save people even if it kills me. For those that want to enter this field, this is the reality that you need to understand. The job of a hero is not safe, it is not fun. The job of a hero is what my Master All Might and I have set out to do. To save and protect. It's okay to have other motives entering, like supporting your family with the money you earn, but you need to realize when you take this job your first priority is to save those that are in danger. That is what it means to be a hero. A true hero. Not for the fame, not for the money, but to save even at the cost of your life, just like my brothers did. 2 I am Fulcrum. So smile, for I shall make the stand. Izuku yelled out. It was silent for a second and everyone's eyes were wide. Then it happened, one person and then the next all knocked out of their shock, and it was roaring applause that Izuku received. Everyone was chanting his name and they just kept clapping one-stop. This was Izuku's declaration to the world that he was here, that they would be saved. This was also the moment that Izuku started his impact on the hero industry and aimed to make more true heroes instead of just those in it for fame or money, instead of wanting to help people. In addition to that, several months later, Fulcrum and Hawks announced a new partnership as Hawks' agency would dissolve and be absorbed into Might Tower. The announcement caused an uproar in the commission, but they couldn't do anything. 3. The announcement that Fulcrum and Hawks put out was that they were working to creating an alliance of heroes agencies instead of just individual heroes, so resources and information were better shared and used. As such, Hawks and Izuku would be the first to set the path. Soon other heroes in the top then had dissolved their agency and joined Might Tower as well. Their individual buildings still stood where they did, but they were all now under the oversight of Might Tower. By the end of the year, when 1A was going to move to 2A, nearly all of the top 10 were now a part of the new alliance system that Izuku had created for the agencies. One notable person that was not in the alliance was Endeavor, and people noticed this. They noticed how Fulcrum, Hawks, and other heroes avoided him nor attempted to invite him into the alliance, and this reflected badly on Endeavor, as some were talking about his ranking falling again the next time the ranks came out. 2. Izuku had also accepted a handful of lower-ranked agencies in the team as well, since this wasn't just focused on the top powerhouses. He also set up an underground heroics division to help better communication between the two sides of heroics. This allowed a large boom in the underground heroics field as they gained a large number of resources at their disposal. Aizawa had joined the agency's underground heroics section and was in charge of leading the overall operation, which only meant he had to ensure people were getting what they needed from the office workers, since they had workers managing the division itself. Aizawa was just in charge of them all to ensure everything got done. Overall, the Might Tower agency was renamed to the new name of Might Alliance due to its new goals and objectives. All Might was so proud of the impacts and changes that Izuku was doing. In secret, though, Nezu and Izuku were working towards getting rid of the Hero Commission due to their corruption. As such, Nezu and Izuku were putting their powers together and were discrediting each individual member of the commission one at a time instead of attacking the commission overall. This way they didn't damage the hero's reputation and ensure the actions the commission people took were framed as their individual actions and not reflective of heroes. This allowed them to chip slowly away at the trust and credibility in the Hero Commission slowly, without people realizing that they no longer trusted the commission but still trusted heroes. The commission themselves didn't realize it either until it was too late. They realized it when Izuku and Nezu had publicly requested the Japanese government to dissolve the Hero Commission and to allow the Might Alliance and Hero Schools to set up a new governing body due to the corruption that the commission has had over the past few years. Nezu and Izuku had done their work slowly and steadily. It was the summer of Baku's and his class's third year when Nezu and Izuku made their public request. The public was shocked but not surprised at the request. Izuku and Nezu had been conditioning people's minds to accept that the commission needed to be replaced, and Izuku's Might Alliance had made the plan pretty much perfect since he ensured his agency had a lot of transparency, so people trusted the alliance greatly. The alliance has even countered the commission's position several times over the years, and the public sided with the alliance instead, which just weakened the commission's authority even more. 2. Principal Nezu and Fulcrum were called before the National Assembly or Diet. The commission president and officials were also called to stand before and answer questions. The commission held that only they had the authority to govern heroes, so they couldn't be dissolved. They also held the position that the crimes of some officials didn't mean the entire organization needed to be dissolved. The Diet looked towards Fulcrum and Nezu for their stance. That is when they hit the Commission hard and exposed the President's crimes and a lot of the Commission's crimes. They released information about the Commission's child soldier program the Commission was running and how they obtained some of the kids. Hawks was called to testify and he confirmed the claims and said he only got free due to Fulcrum and Nezu helping him break free. The Commission couldn't risk going against Fulcrum with how popular he is. They had to accept it like they had to accept a lot of things due to how loved All Might was. That is why they wanted someone like me who moved quickly in the ranks, since they wanted the #1 spot to be controlled by them and not heroes that wouldn't bow to them or that they had dirt on. People like All Might and Fulcrum erodes the Commission's power and they hated them. Hawks said, and the public outcry since this was televised was swift. Protesters quickly gathered throughout the day demanding for the Commission to be dissolved. The Diet moved quickly after it was confirmed via quirks that everything that he said was true. The Diet was pissed with the Commission and had everyone arrested to be questioned and cleared for any crimes. The Diet asked Nezu and Fulcrum for their plan of action for the new governing body. Overall, it is similar to the Commission but more checks and balances. More transparency. There will be a council of 11 individuals to ensure no tie votes. One individual will be the Chancellor of the Council who will maintain order, but the Council will lead the new group. The 11 individuals will be selected the first time around of retired heroes, some government officials, a representative from the hero schools, a representative from the Might Alliance, and then a few individuals that will be picked from the public. All individuals require re-election or reappointment after the terms expire every 2 years. The public figures will be elected by the citizens to ensure they have a voice that will represent 3 of the 11 seats. 3 of the 11 seats will be from the government, 1 will be from the hero schools, 1 will be from Might Alliance. The remaining 4 spots will be retired heroes that will be selected via a vote from any registered hero or retired hero via a system we will set up. Nezu and Izuku explained. Overall, the new system interested the Diet since it gave everyone some voice in the new governing body. It did favor the heroes a bit more due to the seats, but it did give the government and public some control since they did have 6 seats between them which could flip decisions. It was also announced that All Might and Gran Torino, who was acknowledged as a mentor to All Might, were selected as 2 of the retired hero seats in the first round. The public threw even more support to the new system when they learned that All Might was going to be on the council controlling the new governing body. It gave credibility to the new system. Within a year, Endeavor was arrested by the new council for the crimes that he committed. The public was confused until the council announced the crimes. Endeavor's son Shoto Todoroki, or also known as Duality, came to the council with the crimes that his father did that the old commission had helped cover up. It was quick to say that the council acted quickly and arrested Endeavor on the crimes. It was also later learned that Dabi was Toya Todoroki and that due to Endeavor's crimes he had fallen to become a villain. Due to the fact that Dabi hadn't caused any deaths and only destruction, his prison sentence was shortened and would be monitored 24/7 with an ankle bracelet and a quirk device that would alert them if he used his quirk. The Todoroki family was thrilled to have him back and soon they were finally happy for once without Endeavor. Overall, the Hero Governing Alliance, or HGA, was making an impact on the society of Japan and had also advocated the government to loosen the quirk laws. People were allowed to use them for self-defense and quirk parks were set up for quirks to be used in as long as people didn't harm each other. As such, the rate of illegal quirk usage went down greatly and overall crime rates started to shrink. Izuku was still holding onto the #1 position with a solid lead, and the third years from Bakugo's class had long graduated and were making their impacts as well. A lot of them had ended up joining some branch of the Might Alliance, with Bakugo and Todoroki joining the main agency under Izuku. Both of the boys had made a name for themselves and had broken into the top 20 within the few years of graduating and were on track to make it to the top then within the next year or 2. Overall, Izuku was happy with his 2 personal students and how big of impacts he was making on Japan. Quirk discrimination was decreasing and quirkless people were getting laws that protected them more since Izuku advocated greatly for them. He had revealed his past of being quirkless unit. His quirk came in and All Might did the same, which made even more of an impact. They talked about how discrimination and crimes against quirkless people had gotten worse as time went on and talked about the differences between the 2 experiences. People were horrified and after a year or so laws started to change after much debate. Overall, Izuku Midoriya was enjoying his life. His wife Melissa was also pregnant with their first child, and they didn't care if the child was quirkless or not due to the better treatment of quirkless people and laws that protected them. They were feeling comfortable with the rate of change in Japan, and Izuku was glad that he met his two brothers that day. Because of them he made his stand in the world and was changing it for the better. This was the story of how Izuku Midoriya aka Fulcrum, the hero of courage, had made his stand. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and now we will see you in the next video.